welcome back to Drum Key. This is the podcast where we talk about everything drums, drummers, and drum industry. We're recording inside our home away from home, Drums Etc., the Drummers Pro Shop.
In beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Right on cue.
Yes, right on cue. You're getting good. Okay. You're getting good. This is what, the fifth or sixth time we've done this? You're getting good. I'm Adam Steck. That's Shawn Groff. Today we have a special guest. This is Carl Wierzbicky.
Yeah, it's me.
Cool. He did not respond like I pronounced his last name wrong. So
no,
we're
you
just
did
gonna
great.
roll with it. Okay, good.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
People are getting better at it throughout the years. Yeah.
Getting good?
Yeah.
It's often mispronounced and misspelled, right?
All of those, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone thinks my name just is Adam Steck, S-T-E-C. Like they put a K or they'll be like, that's it. Like they're waiting for the rest of it. I'm like, no, that's pretty much it.
No, it's not Steckberg or Steckman or anything else like that. It's just Steck.
Nothing.
It's
Nothing
the solid
like that.
4 letters.
Solid 4 letters.
That's all you need.
Well, Adam's middle name is Riley, and
Too
I think
many.
that has a nice ring to it. That needs to be his stage name.
Adam Riley.
Adam Riley sounds awesome.
Riley. There have been a lot of Rileys in music, too.
John Riley.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Jim Riley.
Jim Riley. Anyone else?
In music, Riley.
Or just in
Just
general.
in general.
It's a good stage name. So the 5 syllable after the 4.
Sounds good. Adam Riley. I think
Anyway,
you ought to change your name.
That's my name.
Yep.
But we're going to be talking about all sorts of different things. And our new studio setup allows us to have 3 people talking at the same time, over each other, interrupting each other. Shawn's getting fresh with the guest. But it kind of opens things up. So if you're familiar with the show, typically it's just Shawn and I talking, and then you get sick of hearing us, so we eventually bring on a guest to have a different voice and someone with some sense of intelligence talk about the same things we're talking about. But here, that gets to be interrupted at any time. So we're going to start the show the way that we normally do with the segment Crank It Up, Turn It Down. All right, so Crank It Up, Turn It Down is a segment where we talk about controversial drum habits, and we discuss them, we talk about them. If we dig it, we crank it up. If you really dig it, crank it up to 11, of course.
Nice.
If it's not your style, turn it down. Turn it down.
Or crank it down if it's really not your style.
Shawn invented that.
I sometimes crank it down.
What did you crank down that you invented that for? That you really
I
dislike?
forget. I don't know.
Go ahead, look at our other videos, put it in the comments. I don't know. That's what people do when they don't actually know something. They're like, audience, we need you to do the work for us.
No, I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was it drum racks?
No.
I forget.
Super cranked something down.
I did
That's not
crank
even
something
part
down.
of the thing. It's
I just
crank it up
made
or
it up.
turn it down.
I just
He
made it up.
cranked it
I was like,
down.
we're cranking that one down.
Like the super duper looper at Hershey, you like super crank something
I
down.
super cranked something down, and I
Okay.
don't know what it was.
Super
I didn't
duper
just.
cranked down.
Usually I just turn it down. I cranked it down, but let's hear it, baby. I want to
All
hear
right.
it. Let's go.
Here we go. And we're going to get both you guys to weigh in on this. I'll weigh in on it as well.
I think it was
Keep a
snare
running
drums.
tally.
You just hated snare
I just hated
drums.
snare
He-
drums.
he-
Yeah, I
he
just don't like snare
despises
drums.
them.
I don't like the buzz of snare drums. I don't like
He just
the
put
depth.
the floor tom, an 18-inch
Yeah.
floor tom, so he's just straddling.
I've once had to do that. One time I went to band practice. I was playing in a cover band a long time ago, and I would bring and I still do this if I'm playing on another set, I bring my snare drum back and forth.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, I didn't bring my snare drum this time, so I had to play this on a floor tom. I had to move the floor tom over and play like that. It sucked.
That's
Did you-
crank it down?
you cranked that down.
Crank that down.
I was like, oh, God.
Did you try to make it sound buzzy at all?
No.
Like put anything on it? You're just
No,
like,
I
nope,
didn't.
I'm just doom,
Yep.
doom,
Just
doom.
went through the motions.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
First one up. All right, guys. Crank it up, turn it down, playing with hot rods.
I'll go first. I'm going to crank it up. Yeah.
Crank it up? Why?
Yeah. I think that it's a different way of playing. It adds different texture to your playing, and sometimes you need a light touch without having to hold back. And I think they sound nice on the drum set, and I think it's just a different tool in your toolbox. And I'm going to crank it up.
Carl?
I like multi rods.
Feelings?
Crank it down.
He's cranking it down.
I
Wow.
mean, granted, I'm not like I'm not like a
Let me have
gig
it.
in a hotel lobby kind of guy. but if
Round
I
one,
did,
fight.
I might play some hot rods if I did. Or I've never played
Right.
a pair that I liked. The last pair I owned were like the nylon ones.
Okay, yeah.
And maybe that's
Super
where
flexible.
I screwed up.
Well-
And they just kept bending, and I'm like, maybe I don't know. My touch has gotten a lot more finesseful over the years, but
Yeah. I'm gonna say that I do have my issues with it. I have to crank it up because I do use them, and I do think that for certain situations, they come in handy.
Yeah.
But I will say also, just recently I was going through some songs and playing, and they were flying all over, and I was angry. I remember I came in.
Yeah, you came
and
in
I was like,
frustrated.
I was frustrated, and then I had to, take a step back and realize I was just playing the rods too hard. So I knew that the fault was on
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
but I was frustrated that every time I hit, like, it seemed like a part of it was flying somewhere.
Right.
And then also, I have switched over to the Meinl synthetic rods, almost like the Regal Tip Blastics,
Yeah,
and
so they've got a
they're
wood handle
Yeah.
and then the synthetic rods going up.
wood handle, because that's what's missing sometimes from the hot rods is you can't do a cross stick.
Yeah.
So with the wood handle you can do that. They are adjustable, but one thing about those is that if you're not careful, those little rings will go flying off, and you're playing. All of a sudden, the rings go flying.
All of a sudden, you have like a full brush.
yeah, and
like,
it's all just fanning out. And I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone both ways with this. I think overall I would crank it up. But I crank it up begrudgingly, I feel like, because
Resentfully cranking it
a
up.
little slight resentment there. And I'll say this. I recently used them with a band in rehearsals. My current setup with my drums is we practice at my house. And it's literally smaller than this. It's like basically the size of this little studio space we
Yeah.
have here. Really small, right?
The
So like
LA
everyone's
size.
on top of each other, right? And I played hot rods, and it was fine, and I felt good kind of playing, and it was like the perfect volume for the room. But then we played live. I played sticks, and it was fine, just because of the gig. I've played a couple of shows. This is a few years ago now. I know we talked about cajones before. I've done like the acoustic like cajon bass drum like thing. No, take up as little space as possible. Basically, just playing with an acoustic singer songwriter duo. I did that, and I would use rods for the cymbals there, and then like a muted stick or something. So they kind of have their place. That said, the synthetic ones are super flexible and are very, very frustrating. I would say if someone wants to try them or needs to for some application or something, start out with Thunder rods. Like if you're going ProMark, start out with Thunder rods. They're the closest to a stick. They're the biggest dowels.
Right.
They're the fattest in your hand. Don't jump to synthetic stuff because those are literally they'll bend. Like you have to literally like your timing's thrown off. Like and they're the most fragile. So. Or like the cool rods are like real skinny and real fragile. If you go from sticks to playing with those, you're just gonna break them and it's over.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be over.
And at $25 a pop,
Yeah, they're
you don't wanna-
$25.
Yeah, you don't want to have to chew through.
Do you know
those.
what a set of hot rods was cost when you started at the shop?
I think
Do you
they
remember?
were $12.95.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, now they're $25. Crazy.
Yeah, 25.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like we should do that a lot more often.
There's
is talk about-
another reason not to play hot rods.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
There you
hey, drumstick prices are almost there too.
Yeah, for serious.
So I'm like,
True.
$15.99 for a pair of 5A,
Yeah.
any brand, like,
Yeah, it's wild.
wow.
Don Randall Music back in the day, you could get a
Yeah.
nice pair of ProMarks for $6, I think.
There you go.
Yeah. We were in 2014 our sticks were almost all like they capped out at $8.99.
Yeah.
And now different prices have gone up. And then there's other things that where as a drum shop like we can help you out coming in the store doing that kind of thing deal. You want to buy a bunch, that's fine. But as far as like online or like advertising our sticks, we're super limited now. A lot of people probably don't realize that with all these map pricing, meaning we can't
Guidelines,
advertise for less than a certain amount and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's very much one of those things where if you have a local drum shop, ask them, talk to them, be like, hey, what's your cost on these or whatever? We've got an in-store deal where if you buy 6 pairs, save $6. Stuff like that. We're just
Nice.
trying to help people out, but you don't know about that.
Because you can't
Because
advertise.
you can't
that.
advertise a lot. Yeah, exactly. You can't say I'm selling these for $9, even though they're
Right.
mapped out
That's
higher.
that's a map
Cool.
violation.
So we got to crank it up, a turn it down, or crank it down.
Yeah, why not?
You're cranking
Let's
it. He's
just go for
cranking it. Crank it down.
I gotta stick
I don't
by
know
it.
if I get a point, but if I do get a point, I'm gonna crank it up. All right, let's do another one. I have a couple here just because it's fun. All right, guys, crank it up, turn it down. Drum risers.
Crank it up.
Yeah, crank it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get that better sound. I mean, if you're on like a basement floor and you can kind of squeeze even like a 2-inch riser on there, which not even speaking from experience, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah, and also you want to be a little bit more elevated than the rest of your band too, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
for many reasons.
Yeah, it kind of gives you like a sense of like confidence in a weird sort of way. And then also, if you are playing in a basement, we'll go back to that. You never know when a pipe is going to break. I've had that happen.
Oh,
Pipe breaks and there's water in your basement, and your drum
Yeah.
set is.
Yeah, it's
You
gone.
know,
She's a
I
goner.
had a. Do you remember Barry Salem that used to work at Drums Etc.?
Yeah.
He was a woodsman and a woodsman.
woodsman. He was a
He
man
was a
of the woods.
carpenter.
Man of the woods.
Well, anyway, I had him
Woodsman.
build a drum riser for me, and I had it for a long time. And I took it when I lived over here on Cobblestone Lane, and our pipe broke, and I'm glad I had that because
Saved the drum
yeah,
set.
the drum set would,
Yeah.
would have been toast.
Yeah, I'll crank it up too. I haven't played with one or had one personally for a long time, but at one point years ago. Now this is my era of having like a whole bunch of rack tom. I'm very like minimalist now. Like 4-piece kit, a couple cymbals, I'm good. And I'm lazy. I'm basically lazy. That's why I do it. The couch is ruined. No. But I'm pretty minimalist now. But at this time, I had like a rack, and I had 3 rack toms, a couple floor toms, a whole bunch of cymbals everywhere, and a whole bunch of stuff. And I built one, and I did the bucket system. Have you heard of that? Like where you basically this is a drum hack actually.
Yeah, I was going to mention this because Rick does this.
He does this.
Rick
Yeah.
Hamilton.
If you want to build your own, which to my knowledge at the moment, no one really has come up with a something like that you'd see in a drum shop to sell. As far as if anyone knows anything, put in the comments, let us know. As far as like a kit or something like that, it's kind of like DIY kind of thing. But the DIY hack for like a larger drum riser is you go to like Walmart or Lowe's or like store, grab the 5-gallon buckets, take the handles off, you screw the lids to the underside of your deck, and then you stack the buckets, throw them in the back of the car, and then you just have flat pieces with the buckets, and then you can put a skirt around it if you want to hide it. But
Awesome.
I did that.
Note to self: build, assemble, and sell pre-made drum risers here at Drums Etc.
There we go. Good. Glad we got that on.
You could
on
also,
tape.
in the case of Shawn's basement, put some flotation devices on it, and then when the water rises, you're just
raft.
kind of
Listen to you now.
Drum raft. and
You're
you
making
got-
a mockery of it now.
You got this.
You got to practice, man. Even in the worst scenarios, you got to get out there and practice.
Yes.
That's it. That's all it takes.
So we're all cranking it up. You gotta have a drum
We are.
riser,
I think
yeah.
we should if we put floaters on ours, we should
Do you guys actually have a drum riser right now?
no.
No, I have half.
Almost like do it. It's the best thing. None of us have one.
Actually, technically, I have half of my drum riser.
Yeah, that's all you
because when I moved into the house that I live in now, my drums went to the 3rd floor, and my half of the drum riser, I am still using 4 drums technically because I have 5 drum sets, and they're stored in my basement, and I have them on the drum riser. So technically, I have half a drum riser. It's
being used.
The other half somehow got lost. I forget what happened to it because it's split in half.
Yeah.
And I no longer have the other half.
We crank up the idea of a drum riser,
Yes.
but we currently don't have one.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's do a speed round. I got one more I wanted to squeeze in here. Crank it up, turn it down, flat bass cymbal stands.
Turn it down. I mean, for hard rock, heavy metal, turn it down. Maybe, sure. I'll hesitantly say turn it down.
I'll go crank it up. I own some flat bass cymbal stands, but they do have their issues, and I bought those a while back because of the lightness factor of them.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you're pounding on it, that cymbal stand gets a little wobbly.
Yeah, but
And-
like Peter Erskine makes it look good. you
yeah,
know?
he certainly
Yep.
does. So
Yep.
I think that for aesthetic reasons, they look cool because of the
vintage
history,
vibe
the
and
vintage
the-
vibe,
yeah.
and everything else like that. So I'm going to crank it up, but yeah,
No, I'll retract. I'll go crank it up. If you're going vintage vibes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you can hold back and you're just rocking that vintage Ludwig or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
It
All right,
looks
I'm in.
cool.
I'm back.
It looks
All right,
cool.
you're back.
Yeah,
I'm back.
We convinced him.
Yeah.
We convinced him. No,
Didn't take much.
I'm piling on. I'm cranking it up. I currently am using some. I use the Pearl ones, and the reason I remember this was how many years ago was this? I forget.
10?
It wasn't 10 years ago. I
10
haven't had it
years
for
ago.
10 years.
Everything is 10 years
All
ago.
right, about 10 years ago. No, I decided to go with some flat bass stands. I wanted that vintage look, and I was like, I'm not bashing and crashing on anything. I don't have huge cymbals. I don't need to worry about the rocking too much. I just love the look of them. I didn't play enough that I was like worried about it. But anyway, so I was like, all right, but I'm going to do a 1-to-1-to-1. Like I want to know what all these are, right? This will probably actually date it because around the time Yamaha came out with those lightweight aluminum ones.
Yeah.
And I considered
10
those
years
as well.
ago.
10 years ago. Thank you. I considered those as well. I put those in the mix just because that's kind of like their lightweight solution. I was
Sure.
like, that'd be nice to have a small hardware bag, not lugging all this stuff around. So anyway, I compared those, the Pearl flat base stands, the DW ones, Gibraltar, and the Ludwig at the time, which they've since updated them. They've since updated them, and they're a lot better now. So that would have been a closer contender.
Yeah.
But the reason I went with the Pearl ones is because they're flat base stands, but you can actually, if you have a drum key, pop the bass off and flip it around to a normal stand.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty rad.
So I've been in that scenario where like you want a little bit more support, and I've also done it when recording, at different times, different places. Because the flat bass mic stands like take up so much floor space. And if you've got a mic stand, you can't slide under there. Flip the bass around, and you can do that. Because that's how a lot of mic stands are.
Also, another downfall to the flat bass stands is that if you're miking your drums and there's a lot of wires going on, they don't scoot under the tripods because they're on their tripods. You know, so they're
right. And I just thought of another thing as well is we have the luxury of being hardcore. Drill a hole in your bass drum, mount it right on your bass drum, rather than like the Virgin bass drum with like mounts off of something, because we're just simple 4-piece kits. It's just easy, just slap it on there. But if you don't do that, if you like to hang a tom off something, you're not hanging one off one of these flat bass stands. They're gonna like tip over. It's pretty precarious.
Yeah.
Just because of how thin the tubes are, trying to be lightweight, you don't want to mount anything heavy off of there too.
Right.
So.
Wow. You got another one.
Another what?
Just crank it up or turn it down.
It sounds like we're all in favor of cranking flat bass cymbal stands up, but there's a lot of hate going on too. We're like,
we're playing devil's advocate. We're giving you the
we're like,
full
oh, that's
spectrum.
cool.
That's what I'm
but you
saying.
know what
Let's
sucks
do-
about it? This.
Let's do
cranking
another
up, though.
round where there's just only yes or crank it up or down, no explanations.
No explanations?
Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta just live it and let the world figure out what you mean by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need something good
You have
though. It
another
would have
one?
to be like I don't have any more written down here. But we could certainly come up with them.
Yeah.
Maybe we can.
This is not a today scenario, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But the
maybe
full
we
on,
could,
just answer it. Go.
we could just answer it. I got one. I have one, and
Here
we're
it
just
is.
gonna answer. Crank it up or turn it down. Crank it up, turn it down. Wearing specific shoes to play the drums.
Crank it up.
Sean,
I'm going to crank it up as well.
turn it down. That's it.
That's it.
Moving on.
No
Moving
answer.
forward. All right. So let's hop into our next segment. You're just going to have to mull that over. For whatever reason, Adam turned it down and they cranked it up. Interesting. But we're going to move on to our next segment, drum industry news. All right, so welcome back. We are going to be talking drum industry news. Now, this is where we really get nerdy. Typically, Shawn and I just completely out talk our guest because we're extreme about gear. But we'll see. We'll see what we chime in on. I know you're a Tama guy, right? Playing Star Classic.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have the same one for 20 plus years. I bought on the New Holland Ave location.
Right. Okay. Very
Nice.
cool. Very cool. I thought so. But we're going to be talking Pearl today, just because this was actually like an interrupted. I actually have like a little note that I put over what we were going to talk about because Sean's like, well, all that stuff just came out. We should probably talk about it. So Pearl just...
I don't talk like that.
He does sound like that. I don't talk like that, he says as he's talking.
Okay.
Exactly. Thank you. Pearl just came out with their new high-end reimagined stuff, which is basically like their push to like revamp stuff. Every drum company does this every year. They revamp
every
stuff,
couple
tweak
years.
stuff every couple
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's not every single year, but every couple years. That Pearl High-End Reimagined is just their name for it this year. Their revamp of their gear and switching things around. But the big thing that they came out with in this High-End Reimagined is the R2 air suspension system, which, Sean, I stuck one over there
Yes.
if you want to show it to people that are
I can do
watching.
that.
People on the podcast, this is just great listening.
Just use your imagination.
Imagine, if you will, and I'll describe it. This new suspension system. You're familiar with Pearl. You know the Opti lock mounts. You know the Opti mounts, right? Essentially, an opti mount is a where the 7/8 inch mount from your tom holder attaches, and then it attaches to 4 lugs, or these little arms that go out. And the
feel like one
grommets,
of
your
Barker's
tension rods.
beauties here.
Yeah, there you go. Your tension rods go right down through it, and that just holds it into place. It's got rubber grommets, so nothing. There's no metal on metal action there. This new suspension system takes it a step further. So essentially, all of your rack toms are going to be surrounded with this new system, this new nice looking chrome system, the whole way around, as far as halfway around, I should say. So the arms extend to like a secondary lug on either side, which surrounds your drum. Basically, these guys are larger OptiMount. This is my very simplification. I apologize, Pearl. But picture, if you will, a larger OptiMount that extends further around your drum so that you get your weight distribution's a little bit better. You get better resonance out of your drums. They also include a whole bunch of these little rubber grommets, which I'm very excited to sell replacements of because we do a lot of replacement parts here because they're almost guaranteed to get lost because you kind of like shove them in there and stack them underneath just to give yourself a little bit more of that cushion. They just put out a whole bunch of great YouTube videos that go through the details of everything. But you'll see this new R2 air suspension system on the new Masters stuff and the new Reference 1. So at the moment, Reference and Reference Pure are no longer. There's just Reference 1. There's just one Reference. It's a good name.
That is, yeah.
It's a good name.
Reference 1. Make it easy.
Yeah. So that was all to bring up the craziest thing that Pearl has done. It's something they said they'd never do before. They came out with an L-arm version of this mount as well, which every other company
said they would never do.
Right. So there's different mounts, obviously, but no longer the 7/8 inch Pearl big tom arms you're used to with the 2 adjustments or the opti or the gyro lock adjustment. It's now like an L-arm, like other brands have their own L-arm. Shawn, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because they said they never do it. That was Pearl's thing to not do that.
Yeah, that's always been their thing. Where I don't think that they were the originators of the L-arm, but they certainly are the most well-known company that has that L-arm. And while all of the other drum companies, you name it, PDP, DW, Tama, Ludwig, they've all gone to the Omniball style system with the L-arm, whether it's like a Mapex, a Hex, or they have the different sizes, 9.5, 10.5. 12.5, whatever else. But everyone seems to use that L-arm.
Yeah, but Pearl's always stuck with their
They've always
tubes.
stuck with theirs, yeah. So now I don't know how it's going to work for them. It looks rather cool. It's a little different than the rest of the companies out there that make an L-arm. It still kind of looks like a Pearl, 7/8, pole. Of course, it's still designed to fit into the bass drum or what have you, but on the end it has that L-arm sticking up. So we'll see how things go with it. I think it's kind of cool because now you can kind of retrofit some things, and it'll make life a lot easier for drummers, I think.
Totally. I mean, if you're going from and I know you just mentioned 100 other companies that use the L-arm, but for somebody who's a Tama dude like myself, that's what I've always played, you can't just go try out a Pearl drum set or whatever because you're like, oh man, now I have to get all new hardware.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting move by Pearl to try that, to mix it up.
Yep.
I hope it works out, and then they can now have more products and more people coming over their way and trying stuff out. But we got a whole bunch of the R2 mounts. We were one of the first people to have them. We're already selling them, actually. We only have 3 left. We're going to be getting more, don't worry, if you're interested. But we got the 7/8 ones, this normal tube ones, as far as the R2 mounts, because in my mind, a lot of people that are digging this technology but already have a Pearl kit might not want to make the jump and get new mounts as well.
Right. As
far as coming out of their bass drum or anything like that.
I see folks wanting to do that here.
Upgrading what they have rather than buying a whole new set with a whole new system. Yeah. It's just hey, I need a 10 and a 12 and I want it to work with what I have already. Right. That was our thought process by dabbling into this, starting with it. But yeah, I think we've every drummer that's gigged ever has played on a house kit that is something different than what they have. So we all have experience with a lot of different gear. I prefer a ball arm kind of adjustment. How Pearl's doing it is actually their like gyro lock thing,
Right.
which they did with some of their 7/8 inch tube arms, where you literally have one drum key adjustment and then you can move it anywhere. How Tama and other brands most other brands do like a clam style where they're like clamping down on a ball, and that holds it into place, which is fine. It's totally cool. There are cheaper mounts there's literally like a wing bolt that screws right into the top of the ball,
Yeah.
and that's where you start to see like slippage and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
they tend to strip.
But Tama's really good about doing clam style where you're like surrounding it and clamping down on it.
They even put those on some of their like inexpensive models as well.
Yeah.
Clam style instead
Yeah.
of just the wing screw pressing in on that ball, which tends to strip over time. Mm-hmm. And if you're a gigging drummer, that's going to fail.
Especially if you're sharing a kit, everyone comes up, adjusts it. There's like 5 more, little gashes in it.
Everybody over tightens the darn things too.
Yeah.
Always.
Don't over tighten.
Chill out with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Snug.
Exactly. I actually, and also, if you're playing vintage gear, you don't know where the gear has been, be careful when you're tightening stuff, because I literally have a scar on my hand right here. That's from working at a drum shop, people. It's a tough job. It's not everyone's cut out. It's a tough job. No, but literally we got this kit, and it was actually an old electronic kit and it just had like the cheapest of cheap hardware with it, to adjust like the cymbal arms and stuff. And I was just adjusting it, getting everything kind of looking good, because anytime you move an electronic kit, if anyone's ever done that, the whole thing, no matter how much you try to keep it the same, it's like you get it set up, it's like this, it's like slightly leaning, or like this is a little tilted. So you always have to kind of zhuzh it to look good. But I was doing that, and I was just simply tightening something, but I could tell these have been tightened so much, so I was like loosening and tightening these bolts that have just been clamped down on. And literally, I have a picture. I'll try to find the picture and post it at some point on our socials. But it's literally like both sides of the wing screw snapped off and just sliced my thumb open.
Yeah, that's all it
Horrible.
takes.
That's
no,
it.
No drums for you for like 2 weeks after that.
I know. I was literally like, I had like a thing around my thumb. I was like, it's kind of brutal. But anyway, don't over tighten. But Pearl, whole bunch of new stuff coming out. I want to do videos shortly. Shawn and we're going to discuss this. This is something that I've had in the works. Going through every year that people mess it up, switch it up as far as like the drum lines that are available and like where they are and like this is comparable to this, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We should go through and do that and be like, okay, updated 2023 Pearl. Here's what your options are now. If you have this from the past, this is kind of like this, but with these shells.
Sure.
And do like a comparison to that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Every time it gets mixed up, people are like, what's this? What's new? And it's like, oh, they stopped doing that. They're starting to do this just to mix it up.
And that's happened so many times over the past X amount of years that sometimes it becomes a little bit of a blur. We're just talking about it like, was that 10 years ago? No, it wasn't 10 years ago.
Oh
I'm like,
my
yeah, it
gosh,
was.
I know.
It was 10 years ago.
Yep.
And there was a time where they did away with the exports, Pearl did. Remember that? They stopped doing the exports.
Wild. The number one selling drum.
I know.
They mixed it up. They're like, this is going to replace it. And they're like, no, people know that name.
Yep.
And they just update it.
Right.
I was talking yesterday with someone, or 2 days ago, about Vision kit. We're talking Vision. Mm-hmm. It's like the slightly upgraded export, but with birch shells. That was a Vision. You know what I mean? But like that description is hard to find. You know what I mean? You go on like a drum forum, forget it. Like it's going to be all these people saying the Vision's the best kit. And they're like, those things suck.
way.
I had this one. I played it once at a gig, but here's my 4 paragraphs of expertise on it. That kind of thing.
I don't read the dirt sheets.
Yeah. Sometimes I get in the trenches. I don't usually participate, but sometimes I'm like, if someone Googled it, like the guy that just called me has this opinion, where'd he find that? Like, let me just Google what he asked me and see what comes up. And it's like, wow, we gave him a straight answer to an answer that was, it's like, but of course that's our opinion as well, but it's also based on years of experience and stuff like that. So there is a little bit to that, but play what makes you happy, people. There's no best, just different. All right, let's move ahead into our Hall of Fame. All right, so Hall of Fame. We established our own Hall of Fame here. Shawn and I said
We did.
if everyone else can do it, it's literally a matter of having a platform, having a microphone.
As the Cranberries said, everyone else is doing it, so why can't we?
There we go. So we have a Drum Key Hall of Fame that we're slowly racking stuff up. Some classics that have been around forever, some new things that we think are kind of game changers, or the idea at least we think is going to survive. But today, we are inducting the 6th member. Is it a member of the Hall of Fame? The 6th
Member, I like that. Yeah.
The 6th member. The
Or
6th
inductee.
There we go.
Well, that's a little redundant.
The 6th
Inducting the
into the Hall of Fame.
inductee.
I'm saying it anyway.
Say
the
it.
6th inductee into the Drum Key Hall of Fame is the Evans Real Feel practice pad.
Oh yeah, those are good.
Oh yeah, Sean's got one. We had
I
to
have two.
we had to bust one out here. Had to bust
is.
one out. Now, if you're familiar, Evans is now distributing the Real Feel pad. We love the double-sided one. There's the top side is kind of like your standard practice pad feel, the gum rubber pad. And then if you flip it over on the reverse side, it actually is like a marching pad. So a little bit harder surface to get that different resistance, like playing on a marching snare. But they make them in octagonal shapes. Nice, fit on any snare drum. Throw it in a snare basket. Keep it convenient. If you're like Shawn, you keep one in your living room at all times.
At all times, I always joke, it doubles as a table. You can put your remote control, your phone there. It sits next to my desk. I spend a lot of time in my living room. I have a desk and I have 2 monitors, and I entertain myself with the, drumming. I'll put on a drum video. I'll drum along. I spend a lot of time on this. Whoa! All of a sudden the just changed. Anyway, I spent a lot of time. The sound changed. I spent a lot of time on my original HQ pad. That was the original. It was a tan finish. I should have brought it today, but it had a little sticker there. It says HQ pad. That's long since gone, but it was double-sided. You probably remember. It's called the
I have
HQ.
one, and this
Real
was
Feel
like tan, right?
Yeah,
You
it was
just said
tan.
It was tan,
Yep.
yeah.
Right. And I put it on a snare drum stand, and I spent a lot of time on that watching Jim Chapin's Speed, Power, and Control.
Awesome video.
And it's literally Jim Chapin, the master of the Moeller technique, on a real fill pad, talking about the technique and showing you exercises and such. And I just spent a lot of time just doing that in front of the TV. This is VHS. I still have it on VHS.
Yep.
Now you can find it on YouTube. You can watch the whole darn thing right on YouTube now.
Yeah.
So I would encourage anyone to get yourself a real fill pad and watch that video. But I will say that I think that if you are starting out, I agree with Rick on this. I think that starting out on a proper drum is where it's at. You know, because if I started on this, we might not be having this conversation today. Because playing on a practice pad was something I did not want to do. Now I love it. After you've been playing and you understand the importance of technique and really isolating that, playing on a practice pad is fun. I know it sounds goofy, but it's a lot of fun playing on a practice pad. But when you're starting out, I can see how just hitting this gum rubber pad, and you're like, why am I even? What's even?
Yeah, you lose a little bit of that allure of like, oh, I want to play the drums. Like, great, and you show up and for your lesson, and there's like, what you're gonna need is a slab of rubber to hit, and be like, oh, you mean something that's not loud, doesn't respond the exact same way, and is very boring. And I have that paired with just sheet music when I'm learning how to read. It's like very discouraging.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked too much about us getting into drums on the show, but I know that we didn't go the traditional route. As far as like traditional educational route, where you take lessons in school, you come up, you play in band, maybe marching band, jazz band, and that's how you get started. Shawn and I did not come from that route. Very much more like, hey, our friends want to start a band. Yeah, I'll be the drummer. And then you're in a basement or a garage figuring it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we had to go back and
we had
learn
to go
your
back.
fundamentals
Exactly.
and things like that.
But that said, a lot of people might not know this. I did go to one drum lesson, one like school traditional drum lesson when I was first starting. I mean, we're talking what, like 4th, 5th grade? I don't know when that is. 3rd, 4th grade. I forget what it was. And I went in and we played on practice pads the whole time. Or half the time we were playing on practice pads, which I found extremely dull. And the second half of the time they were like, oh yeah, also you can't just learn drums. You have to play this bell kit. So then it's like literally you're like have one of those bell kits. So it was like I had to learn notes on a bell kit, which is not a drum. I could have told you that that time.
Just wasn't
and
what
it was
you
a
had in
practice
mind.
pad. And it was not. And because of that, I went home that day and said I quit. And that was it.
It
that
took
was
a couple
And then
years for
it
you
took
to get.
me until like high school to actually start drumming again.
Yep.
And that was when like people wanted to. I always had that in the back of my mind that I wanted to do that. But so long story short, practice pads are great. We sell a ton of these practice pads. Great pad to have. but I would definitely view it more as like a tool to excel rather than like your square one. Like you said, starting out with a drum is going to encourage, especially a kid that's just getting into it, or some parents like, hey, you should need to do something.
Sure.
They're going to want to hit a drum if they said they want to play the drums.
But I'm going to just talk briefly about the importance of putting this on a snare drum stand, because not just because it doubles as a table, which I love, but because it's adjustable. So depending on where you're sitting in your house, you might sit on your couch, you might sit in a computer chair, you might sit on your drum throne. You can adjust it. You don't, if you're putting this on your coffee table and you're kind of like, oh, okay, you need to
playing it up on the
you need to
counter.
play this practice pad like you're sitting at a drum set. So that's why it is very important to put this on a snare drum stand, because it's fully adjustable.
Yep.
I've had band practice with this, where we needed to get one rehearsal in, one more rehearsal.
Just running through the songs.
Just run through the songs.
Chorus,
I'm just
verse, here,
playing
there's
like,
that. Yep. Just to make
and
sure
I'm
everyone's
just
on the
drumming
same
along.
page.
Yeah, and we're sitting in the basement and we can't, just jam it out. And I'm just keeping time. I grab this.
Yeah,
I just
and you're
grab
warming
this.
up, and you're warming up in the process.
Absolutely. So get yourself a real feel practice pad. Get yourself a proper snare drum stand, and watch Jim Chapin, and
That's
go to
it.
town, baby.
That's Shawn's go-to kit.
That is.
Cool. Awesome. Anything to add, Carl?
I totally agree. The practice pad is awesome. Starting with the snare if you can is great, but like if parents are hesitant because they're so darn loud that like if it's a pad, that's what it takes. Do it
for sure.
Definitely
Yep.
like down. Because the sad part is we all know like drums. Like I want to be a drummer. It's like cool. The sky's the limit with how much money you can spend to just get in there right away. So like getting a pad, like you can do just like Shawn just did, where you're playing a rock beat, you're doing all the stuff, but it's right there on the pad, and with your own dynamics, you can kind of like make it sing a little bit or do, make it musical essentially. But definitely the stand down the road. I mean, you can get cheap used stands. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
that. So you don't need to go for.
You don't need to get the Pearl top of the line S2000 $250 snare drum stand.
Right.
I think this might be a $70 snare drum stand.
Yep.
This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. It doesn't fall out.
And that's new. And we've got used stuff too. Just hit up your local drum shop. You can get it going for very minimal cost. And then of course build up to it. The next thing, if you have your pad, then get a snare drum, but just stick the pad on top of it. So you start to feel and hear that snare buzz and have that different response, and then work your way up, that sort of thing. But yeah, very cool. Very cool. Hall of Fame inductee. It's in. It's in for life. No one ever gets kicked out of our Hall of Fame. It hasn't happened yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, unless they make us mad. No. All right, awesome. Yeah, let's jump ahead to quick question. All right, so quick question. This came about because Shawn and I deal with this every single day. And Goody, we all deal with it. Someone walks in the door and says, hey, quick question for you. And we just know. We know.
It ain't a quick question.
It ain't a quick question.
Well, actually, it might be a quick question, but it doesn't have a quick answer. So technically, they're not wrong. Quick question.
Exactly.
I heard this on the Mino podcast.
Yeah.
I forget the Mino rep one, and I was cracking up. It's funny.
It's so true. Like, hey, quick question for you. It's like, okay, here we go. Strap in. No, it's all good. We love answering the questions, but this format kind of allows us to dig into stuff and ramble on and hopefully answer it before you ask it, right? That's the idea. So, today's quick question, I would say 7 out of 10 times I get asked this. It's a phone call. It is coming from someone who is a relative of someone who might be interested in drumming. Just to give you a little context from my experiences. And they're not only asking a quick question, they're looking for a quick answer, which makes it hard to answer. Because you know that they don't really, not that they don't care that much, but they really don't need the details.
Right.
It's not like someone coming in that wants to know and dig into it, right? All right, guys, quick question. How expensive is a drum set? Oof. Really? I like the really.
How expensive is a car?
How expensive? Yep. It's even crazier than that because the
kinda
variance is even
Sure.
wider.
Yeah. What is a drum set?
Yeah.
Whoa.
A drum set could be a bass and a snare and a pair of hats. That could be somebody's drum set.
Mayonnaise
That's their
bucket
set.
if you're 12 years old.
Yeah. Or a
That's
busker on
Pots and pans,
in Atlantic
trash
City.
can lids for cymbals.
Yep. That was my first drum set. Just whatever I had around the house.
Whatever you had, whatever you had to drum on, whatever you had to drum with. So when I think of this this happening, or my approach to it, I'll give you my 2 cents of where I kind of take it. I immediately, as a lot of these questions, ask follow-up questions and determine, is the person I'm talking to going to be a drummer? Typically, this question is asked by someone that's like, so-and-so told me to research this, or my wife thinks it's a good idea, or blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they want a quick answer. So I hit them with, are you looking for a drum set or just getting started with drums? Because like we said, realistically, a practice pad and a pair of sticks is very low cost to entry versus like, no, you got to rent the violin. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But I start there, and then if we determine it is a drum set, I do the range of new and used, because people always get that. And then they're like, yeah, used.
Or always. They always
Always.
ask, what do you have used? Well, we don't want to buy new. Well, sometimes the better deal is new.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
It's true. It's
Not
true.
always, so it's like you have to qualify it, and sometimes that is the better deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So how expensive is a drum set? It depends. Again, is a horrible answer because they won't accept that. I usually start by saying, look, picture about $500 all in. And then we'll figure it out. We'll pick up the pieces. What do you really need? What do you want? We're obviously talking used in that price point, stuff like that. But again, like you said, like an average starter set that comes with absolutely everything brand new can be $659.
Sure.
So if you want to make a jump of $160, you can start out all new. Now, what's the quality of what you're getting? That all depends on what we have available at the time, especially used. Varies a lot.
And sometimes when someone asks that question, like, how much is a drum set? It's just what you said. It's grandma, it's mom and dad, and they'll have preconceived ideas as to what their young aspiring drummer usually needs. They're like, well, he doesn't need very much. He just needs maybe a little bass drum, maybe a little cymbal to hit, maybe a little snare drum, and you're like, okay, you need a drum set. There's no just, oh, it's just a bass and a snare. Like, no, you need a drum set. If you want to play the instrument, that's what you need. I don't know where I'm going with that,
But like my white Tama Rockstar drum set that I got on the Queen Street Drums Etc. location in the early '90s, which was painted black in the middle. It was kind of like a ripoff of Lars.
Oh,
but
nice.
Not ripoff.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, I'm teaching
Oh,
on it
dude.
right now. It's
oh
awesome.
my god, I want to see this.
It's definitely not white. It's more of a cream these days. But like,
Yeah.
But that set, like back in the day, at least I remember, I think it might have come with like a hi-hat stand and a cymbal stand. No cymbals. Mm-hmm. It was like super minimal of what it came up with. So like the sets today that like they'll be like, oh, we'll throw in an extra cymbal, or like you get this, you get that, and that's pretty awesome. Like even the throne too, because you'll buy a drum set for $660 or $650, and then all of a sudden you're like, I got to buy a throne now too. It keeps going up real quick, and these sets that are throwing all that in is really cool. Pearl has them.
Yeah, everyone's
does.
got one.
Yeah.
Every drum company just about that we deal with has their entry level, and then has their like step up. That typically is more of a package, includes some beefier hardware potentially, maybe some cymbals depending on the brand, and then they have their kind of like gig ready kit.
Yeah.
And then they have their professional kit, and then they'll have like boutique stuff. Like,
and then it's funny. It's like the higher up you
crazy.
go, the less equipment you get.
Shells
It is
only.
true.
Thanks. So that's very confusing.
Shells only.
to-
Now the snare's not included.
Yeah, it's very
It keeps
confusing
going
to
and
someone,
going.
and
then it's like, no, you got to buy them individually. Like,
Yeah.
tell us which ones, and we'll make them for you.
yeah.
Going back to like the pricing of stuff and like what comes with it, that kind of thing. We did this 2 years ago with Rick Nonemacher, who we had on the show. Shout out Rick. He has his original receipt and numbers from when his family, I think it was his grandma or mom, I forget who it was, went to the store and bought his Slingerland kit complete, which he still has, right?
Awesome.
So he's got this essentially 5-piece Slingerland kit, and it came with hardware and Zildjian cymbals. Like it was a package deal. It was a package deal, and I forget exactly what it was, but I'm guessing somewhere in the realm of like
I think it was $1,200.
$1,200. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Right. But it's interesting because people come in here and they're like $500. Like some people are like, wow, that's not a lot, and other people are like, that's insane. Right. So it's always interesting. We did a calculation of like inflation and like the average income, and like we number crunched it from a few different angles, and essentially for that same amount of money, he could get like at the time 2 years ago, the base level a reference 5-piece kit.
Right. No cymbals,
Just
no
the drums,
hardware,
but
no
a
snare.
reference.
Right.
A reference, people. You know, like before a lot of the Japanese-made kits and different like import kits started coming over, it was like, oh, you want a drum set? Here's the Slingerland, here's the Rogers,
Here's the Ludwig.
Or here's the Ludwig. Exactly. And it was like that was your option, and you either had a drum set or you
and they didn't have levels.
Exactly.
You know, they began to, but early on, it's like, oh no, you have a Gretsch. There was only one Gretsch. Different sizes, sure.
Right.
But you had a Gretsch. You had a Ludwig. There was no Ludwig accent, Element, Classic Maple, Classic Maple Reserve.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
It was just a Ludwig.
And it's important to keep in mind, I always try to have what I get overwhelmed here because we have to do all the ordering for sticks and heads, and there's like so much abundance right now. But I need to stop and just be grateful that it's available.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Sometimes I'm like, just simplify it, have one kit. But then all those drummers that came in were like, well, I only had one option when I went in, and they had 2 colors in the store, and that's all I know because, Yeah. But now it's so hard for us to stock a store as far as like predicting what people want and trying to have it. But that's why we do a lot of special ordering here too. It's like, if you can customize your kit down to the sizes and the colors and the finishes and the
you just
era.
have to listen. Just have to listen for those quick questions. Just pay attention to what they're asking for.
Exactly.
Super quick answer,
Exactly.
usually.
But
How much does a drum set cost?
Yeah, how expensive is a drum set? How expensive is a drum set? Nowadays, there's a range. The answer used to be pretty clear. It was like this
Anywhere
or about
from 5 to here. You just have to ask, like, well, what are you looking for? Are you looking for everything pre-packaged? Because then that's anywhere from, 6 to 800. Are you looking for your step-up drum set? Are you getting away from the entry-level kit? Now you want an intermediate set? Okay, that's going to be, let's say 8 to 12. Oh, you're looking for a professional kit? Now we're looking 1,500. The sky's the limit.
Exactly.
So you can really break it down like that, but that opens up a lot more questions, too.
right.
That's
and
why...
That's exactly right. That's the real answer. You just laid it out very, very easily. But the conversation with someone who's not a drummer coming here being nerdy about what's the difference. It's like you don't really even need to get out of that.
Right.
So typically, hey, ballpark it, $500 will get you a kit.
Yep.
You might not have the choice of all the gear. It might be all used gear put together. But realistically, to get you outfitted, nowadays in 2023, about $500 will make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to revisit this in 10 years and be like, wow, I can't believe I just said that.
Said it.
Yeah.
We're all old and gray.
Yep. Well, you might be gray.
And
You're already gray.
And we'll have flying drum sets by that point.
Yes, your drum set will also double as a car.
Or floating.
Floating like in Shawn's basement.
Yep. All right. So, I feel like we covered it pretty well there. Real quick, I want to plug our Discord channel. There should be a link down below. I've been working out bugs with it. But essentially, in addition to being able to comment on this video or on this podcast on the platform you're listening to it on, also we have a Discord channel where we're starting to build a community of drummers. You can share your kit, share where you're from, share where you're tuning in from, that sort of thing. But also then just have direct access to us to be able to answer any questions, quick or not. But that's just a really easy way for us to communicate and just be directly in touch with Shawn or I about something we talked on the show. We appreciate your feedback as always. I won't do the spiel about liking and subscribing because I'm sick of hearing about it. Just
you know
support
what to do.
us.
You know what to do.
You know what's going on. But I want to jump into Between the Plies now, where we just dive into our guests a little bit.
Uh-oh.
We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and it is live to tape recording, as you've discovered being here.
Yeah.
So we don't cut anything out. We just roll with it, make it happen, try to watch what we say, not insult anyone, of course. But we are back. We're in the Between the Plies section. This is where we dig a little bit deeper. talk to our guest about their start with drums and their start with drums. Sean's hand, I can't deal with it. They're getting into drumming. First off, I love that bass line influences. We'll start there. We'll work up to present day about what you're doing. But by all means, this is free form. So whatever you want to start with, I usually say first time you sat behind a kit is a good place to start, or first time you saw a drum, you're like, I want to do that.
Oh man, I could do both, I think.
Okay.
So, well, back in grade school, the fourth grade was like the time when they were like, it's instrument time. And I didn't really know what I was going to do, but my aunt, she was just like, you're going to be a drummer. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. But also like, when I was like 9 or 10 years old in 91, like the whole grunge music thing was happening, and like Metallica was still just massive, even though they still are. But like,
Yeah.
so like all of that new like hard rock stuff, MTV was still playing music. So like just glued to all that stuff all the time. And then so when school came around, it was snare drum. Just learning, Wharton Elementary School, snare drum for 2 years straight. No, didn't even touch a drum set.
Because school band didn't
That's it.
offer guitar, so you're like, hey, I'm gonna play drums.
That's
You're
it. Yeah.
watching my favorite rock bands on MTV.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well, Lars plays drums.
Yeah.
I'm going for
Yeah.
that.
And so that was that. And then that kind of like goes into the first time I played drum set. It was, I think I went to Reynolds Middle School, or junior high as it was known then. And the music teacher was like, I don't have drummers. So when my friend Ian and I, when we were in 6th grade,
Is this Ian Fedorchik
it is.
of Falcon Jones fame?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shout
Shout
out
out,
Ian.
shout out to Ian and the legendary band Falcon Jones here in Lancaster.
Yeah, so him and I, like, we grew up in school together, and like our music teacher was like, I need drummers for jazz band. So in 6th grade, him and I went to Reynolds, and the first time we sat behind a drum set, at least for me, I think, he was just like, okay, sit there. I'm like, okay. So he's like, now do kick and snare. And that's exactly what I did. And then his exact words were, now do a rock beat. And I intuitively, I guess I knew how to play it, and I just played a rock beat.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, now do kick and snare again, and now play the jazz beat. And that's like the first time I sat on a drum set. And then you just we just hammered it through that,
Yeah.
and just butchered it hard, I'm sure. China Grove, all day, China Grove, and jazz band in middle school.
Oh yeah.
Doobie Brothers, China Grove. And then in Ian's basement, he had, as far as like first drum sets, he had, I think it was just a kick, a snare drum, a hi-hat, and then a mayonnaise bucket or two. And
Yep.
we didn't know anything about like how long a song was or anything like
Right.
that. So we're like, well, the average song on the radio is like 6.5 minutes. So we would just sit there and time each other playing rock beats for just 6.5 minutes each time. Arms
good
were
practice.
just on fire,
Burning,
burning.
yep.
That's good practice, though.
And yeah, so that was kind of just like the beginning of the woodshed. And then when Drums Etc. moved to Queen Street, that's
Yep.
when I got the White Tama Rockstar Lars lookalike kit.
That's awesome, and it's great that you had each other to be able to like push each other.
It was awesome. Yeah, I mean, him and I, at least through middle school, I never wanted to wear like marching band gear, so I kind of stopped in school band after that. Although I really like that style of drumming. I think
Oh, yeah,
it's
for sure.
really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, him and I like pushed each other through junior high and just kind of always played, and then we were in like coinciding bands and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you heard Metallica, and you ended up getting a Lars kit.
Yeah, one of the first tapes I bought, I think, when I was 9 or 8 was Injustice for All.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm still listening to it today with just different ears. But yeah, so like the whole like hard rock and heavy metal thing, that was it for me.
I gotta agree with you there. That was my early inspiration too. Was Metallica, and my one of the first albums that I bought, other than like the recorded stuff that I had. Like I had the Black Album like dubbed, and then I went backwards. And I think the first Metallica album I ever bought was Ride the Lightning, because I had already had some of the ones that were dubbed, like I said, but the one I went out and got like
That was it.
Ride the Lightning.
Yep. Spent your own hard-earned
It was
money
a
on
tape. Oh, and then the tape broke, and I fixed it.
Yeah.
But I put it back in backwards so that it played backwards.
I was just like
Oh, wow.
saving batteries on my Walkman in school and
still remember that.
rewinding the tapes with a pen. Did you ever do that?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. But like, so yeah, definitely like, and Lars, I think, was just a massive influence for me as a kid. And I know people like drum nerds give him flack, but Lars, crank it all the way up. Lars.
I agree.
Lars is cranked up. Add it to the list.
I agree.
Hall of Fame. Too.
I'll say this.
And Hall of Fame. Let's
We
go,
were-
Lars.
Yeah.
Every segment. Quick question, Lars.
Yeah, we could put the Lars Ulrich drumsticks in the Hall of Fame. We certainly could do that at some
Good.
point.
Oh yeah, he definitely.
For
I
sure.
bought those the A-head sticks back in the
Yep.
day because of Lars.
Right. We had a drum clinic, the Meinl Common Thread Drum Tour, years ago at the old shop, and it was Mike Johnston. It was
Lars.
was it Lars?
Not
But
Lars,
Lars is
definitely
going to
not
get
Lars.
mentioned here, and I'm sorry, the JP. The other names are escaping me just for
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But Mike Johnson, who's an educator, we were all sitting around talking, and someone had mentioned something about how Lars isn't a great drummer or something, and he shut him down.
Good.
Yeah, Johnson shut him down. He said, "Look, without drummers like Lars inspiring people to pick up the drums, we don't have this drumming community." You know?
Absolutely.
And Lars Ulrich has sold millions upon millions of records. So that in and of itself, you need to tell me that he has this guy here has played numerous tours, recordings,
Right.
sold all these records, and he's not a great drummer.
Get
He's
outta
an
here.
awesome drummer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like just like thinking of like iconic drum parts. I got like listening to the double bass thing in One.
Right.
And that was just like, whoa, what is he doing? I didn't even know it was humanly possible to play that fast.
Right.
And then like things like Dave Grohl's intro to like Smells Like Teen Spirit, like that kind of just like musicality of like, and the New York band Helmet was like a big one for me back in the day too, because that drummer John Stanier, it just writes. They all have these parts that are like super musical that, like I've been on tour where a drummer's playing the one beat and I'm like, oh yeah, you know that song, and it's like you can just from drums only you can play One and everybody knows it's Metallica. You can do the intro to Smells Like Teen
Absolutely.
Spirit. You can do certain Helmet drum beats and
And you know immediately what it is.
Absolutely.
They're iconic.
yeah, I mean like Rosanna Shuffle and all that stuff.
Yep.
Like these are just like drum parts
Yeah.
that, and all of them have influenced me throughout
Yeah.
the years.
And they're so iconic that even non-drummers will call you out on it. You start playing like essentially that shuffle or something, or like the beginning of Smells Like like everyone's just be like, oh, and you're literally just playing drums. There's no like other melody or anything going on with it. It can make or break a song. We talked a little bit about how drummers aren't necessarily credited, like for like songwriting purposes and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that every drum part is like insanely instrumental and like game changing for the song. Sometimes you just kick it and that's what the song calls for. It's cool. But then there are other times where you're like, man, this is the opening lick that everyone recognizes. This drummer should be like,
This is a drum song.
yeah, exactly. It's that integral.
And I think too, and this goes into like a little of another subject, but with Lars and Metallica, like he's one of the key arrangers of that band.
Yeah.
So he's like the dude listening and like pulling riffs and like putting stuff together and like I don't know if that directly influenced me or not, but whenever I'm playing with other people,
Yeah.
guitar players especially, it's like I love everything you're doing. Now I'm just trying to like maybe make it cooler in my head and seeing
Yeah.
where we can accent things and like helping with the arrangement. And I think a lot of drummers like obviously there's times when it's not necessary. You're playing the
Yeah.
backbeat
Yeah.
and that's awesome. But like I think it's really important to like take that information and then contribute without just playing, a beat and not saying
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I had and this was VHS, A Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica. Have you ever seen that? I'm sure you have.
Yep.
And Lars he does that a lot in that when they're writing the songs. He goes, play this, but extend it one measure. I'm trying to do my Lars impression, but extend it one measure forward. And he has a
Yeah.
funny way of explaining things, and I do it to this day. I was just practicing with my band on Sunday, my original band, and we were coming up with a song, and I said, no. I was like, you should drop out. When I'm hitting the cowbell, you shouldn't be playing. I was like, that should be that part. Sing over that, and his mind just lit up. He was like, "Oh my god, yeah, you're right." And I was like, and then once we go to the crash cymbal, I'm playing
Yeah.
the same beat but only on the crash. That's when you kick in with the guitar. It's going
Oh,
to
yeah.
mean more than you playing it. You can't hear the cowbell.
Yep.
You know,
and it's
like,
all tension and release, and there's
Yeah.
like there is that flow. And from the drummer's perspective, from our perspective, I could say, it's you are thinking differently. You're focusing on different things in the room, so you can see something or hear something, I should say, that might be hidden when you're focusing on other things. It's so important to be that collaborative thing. That's awesome. So, did you find other Metallica fans and start bands? How'd you get started actually playing, like outside of school bands, but like in rock bands and stuff like that?
Yeah, so my brother was also, he's 4 years older than me. He played guitar at a certain point. He started in the school band same way I did, played trumpet. And then when he was like 14, 15 or 16, he started playing guitar. And then him and I just started hashing it out in the basement together.
Yeah.
And then we were in a couple bands. We would play, fire halls and punk places in New York. And what was the crazy? We'd like Googlersville or Gouglersville. I don't know how to say it yet still. And all over. So we would just kind of do that. And then I just started getting with another group of friends. And then we would play all over the place. And it kind of extended to Philly, DC, Baltimore, sometimes Pittsburgh, and all over here as well. And just like booking our own DIY like punk shows. And then after that band, I was in this metal band.
Wait, we need band names. I love band names,
Ah, okay.
especially when they're bad.
This
Not
is
saying they
really
are.
bad.
Okay,
Ready?
bring it on.
Brother's band name and mine. Oh wait, no, there was two different versions. One was the classic, we opened a dictionary and pointed to a word, and that was the band name.
Yep.
whoa, what was it?
Wilson's Warbler.
I like it.
It's a type of bird, which we obviously learned at
That's
that very moment.
Awesome.
And then
Great.
Then it switched into 69 cents, which was SENSE, because we were very clever as teenagers.
Very clever.
And then I was in this like thrash punk band where we only sang about skateboarding called Race to Die, which was funny because at that time Ian was
These are
in
great names. I don't understand. Horrible. These are great band names.
So
Jeez.
I was in this thrash punk band where we're playing 17 to 45-second songs, and then Ian at the same time, that's when he was doing Falcon Jones.
Yeah.
So we had this insane like dichotomy of
You guys
like,
couldn't play together.
never
as far
played a
as,
show together,
played a show
unfortunately.
Definitely two different vibes. But so you and Ian weren't in a band together though, right?
No, it's hard to start
Yeah.
other bands with drummers.
Yeah,
I would
I was
love to
super
start a
hard.
band with you guys, but you
I know.
the only thing I'm good at is drums.
Yeah, me too. I can't play any other instrument.
I know. I'm
Then-
trying to expand, but
Yeah, and then locally after Race to Die, I was in this heavy metal band in Lancaster called Dark Black, and that was awesome. Another 3-piece heavy metal band, and then second band practice. We didn't even think about names, and then Tim, our bass player, he just said, "Hey, I was talking to my friends about starting this new band, and one of them said we should call it Dark Black." And I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." And we never thought about it.
It's
again.
funny. I chuckle
it's awesome.
because but it's an awesome band name. And if that was your band name right now, I wouldn't even bat an eye at it. You're like, I'm in Dark Black. I'm like, cool.
It was cool.
But the
We
fact
did.
that this was a former band name of like 20 some odd years ago, it's funny. It just sounds funny.
Groundbreaking
Yeah.
band
Yeah.
name.
Dark
We did
black.
black on black T-shirts, which were awesome looking. Highly
yeah.
recommend that. And then from there, that's when I moved to LA after that, and then
Well, hey, can we, before you get to the LA thing?
Dark Black.
Dark
all-
Black.
all
No,
day.
no. We're going to skip ahead. Because there was a time where you taught at Drums Etc.
Oh, this is very true.
Before you went to LA.
That's
I can't
absolutely.
wait to get into this LA stuff, but I want to hear about this because I know that you taught there, but I'm like, it's kind of a haze. It wasn't.
It
too
was
long.
like, unfortunately, shorter lived than I'd like. I was teaching briefly. I mean, at 21 years old, like I knew everything for some reason, and I was teaching over at whatever it was, Fred's Music on Roseville Road,
Yeah.
and I was like, no dissing to Fred's, but I was like, this kind of sucks for me. So I had asked Travis at that time, who was working at Drums Etc., and I was like, dude, and he was like, hey, well, you can have whatever Wednesdays at 2 or whatever time. It wasn't 2, but
Yeah.
so I started teaching at Drums Etc. and talked to Rick Hamilton for a hot second. I think his hair was short at this point. Like, it was like maybe one of the first times, maybe not.
Now he cut his hair in the mid '90s.
That was the Queen Street store.
Yeah, he cut his hair long before New Holland Avenue.
So yeah, there was the New Holland Ave store, and I taught in. I think I just taught in the downstairs room that was on the side, like in between the cymbal room. I think there was a room there.
Yep, absolutely.
And I had like 4 or 5 students, and then it was great. I mean, in between lessons, you would just come outside and like watch drum videos and shoot the breeze with everybody. And then it was I went to it's Dom Famulero Drum Clinic there.
Yeah, this was 2005. Okay,
it was awesome.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had already had my mindset on like moving to LA, and then I had was super inspired by Dom Famulero, and his clinic he didn't even play that much, which wasn't a bad thing. It was just so interesting to listen to.
So inspiring, right?
Absolutely.
His autograph and picture is still hanging up in my drum room today.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah, he's still hanging up.
And then it was soon after that, short after that, that I had moved. I moved to LA.
Okay, it's funny. Now that you said your day was Wednesday, and I'm like, how I knew that you taught at drums. I had Wednesdays off for the longest time.
Oh, okay. Then it's definitely
that's why I don't
Wednesday.
remember you very much being around. I knew that you taught there, but I'm like,
it wasn't that he wasn't around; it's that you weren't around.
I had off Wednesday. I never worked Wednesdays.
No, I did everything at Drums Etc. on Wednesdays.
Yeah,
I did a lot. I was manager. I did a lot of ordering.
That's why everything was screwed up. I get it now.
You come in Thursday. What happened?
What's going on here? It's all making sense. So that's awesome. So you were very inspired by that drum clinic by Don Famulero, as was I. So I thought it was awesome, tremendous, and he didn't do a lot of playing because when he did play, it meant something. He just talked about playing drums.
Tons of context.
Yeah, it was just so great. We had that on tape. I wish we still had it. I would love to watch that again. But Don Famulero, I think, has a number of videos out there on YouTube of drum clinics that have been uploaded that people have put up on YouTube.
He has that YouTube show where he interviews people as well, I think.
Right.
It's like a long form. I forget the title of it.
Yeah, he's real tight with...
we ought to get him on.
He's tight with Dom. Come on the show. Drum key. No, he's tight with Mapex and Sabian, so he does a lot with both their educational outreaches and stuff. It's very cool.
And we always talk about NAMM.
Yeah.
I do have a Don Famulero story.
I'll hit me with it.
Yeah. So, again, I'm out at NAMM.
Yeah.
And this is in California. And I see Don Famulero there. And I'm like, this is now probably 7 years removed since the drum clinic. He's not going to remember me. But I'm going to go up and say hi to him. I couldn't. He was just surrounded by people.
He's got a lot of love.
Like, everyone was just around this guy because he radiates that positive energy. And there's this aura about him. And I stood there waiting. I was just to say thanks. Just say, hey, man, you did a drum clinic, drums, etc. And let him pretend like he remembers me. Oh, yeah, Shawn, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you,
Yeah.
But my moment never came. So I just walked off. But I saw him. It was at the Sabian booth. Mm-hmm. Or Sabian. It's more than a booth. Oh my God! It's a
Sabian.
Yeah,
Sabian
insane
section.
Sabian
You been to the show?
I went 1 or 2 or 3 times when I lived in LA.
Oh yeah. Wow.
I once was at the I was at the Tama booth, and Simon Phillips was standing next to me. I didn't get scared. I got really nervous. I couldn't say anything. And at that point, I was in a band and touring, and I was kind of used to meeting certain people of certain statures and stuff like that. And I wigged out. I just kind of turned around and left.
Yeah.
I wish I would have said something. No, I love Simon Phillips, but yeah, I kind of got. I think there was another Tama type heavy hitter there too, and I forget who it was, but I know Simon Phillips was right there, and then I just about faced and split.
You're not alone. I don't know if you listened to our pop-in episode we did yet, but
not yet.
Okay, you got to listen to it because we talk about this a lot. Basically, we just start sharing embarrassing stories and stories where we met something. I screwed up a meet and greet with Peter Erskine, and not just a meet and greet. I really messed up. This is just regret in my face right now. I really messed up. The chance with him and other artists and stuff. And Tyler from Hal Leonard, which is one of our distributors we get stuff from, was here, and he was telling stories about different people. We told a story about Will Calhoun coming in the store, and no one said anything to him. We have horror stories, so you definitely have to check that out. But it's really funny. Everyone, check it out. Check out our pop-in episode with Tyler Bartelt from Hal Leonard. So you're moving out there.
Yeah.
Did you have a band and you're like, we're all going and we're gonna, or you just moved yourself?
I was in Dark Black, but those guys were like, we're moving to Portland, Oregon. And I was like, oh man, I really just don't want to move to Portland, which I really do love Portland, Oregon. I almost regret not going, just because it's really cool up there. And so I ended up moving to LA, and I didn't have a band, but I knew at that time Craigslist was still a thing. So I knew just by looking on like Craigslist that I can do something here and I can just try. So, and I think I immediately just went that route, whether it was looking for certain bands or putting out my own stuff. And, you know, the cool thing was whatever you put out, people would respond, and, you know, you had actual like people to weed out, you know what I mean? Be
right.
Like, oh, that's not a good fit. This person totally gets it. Let me see what happens. And so I just kind of was in a couple bands there, some rock bands. And we, you know, that's kind of where I started touring at the super lightest. I did this one. Here's a crazy gig. So I was in LA and I was working, and a band dude calls us and says, hey, we got a show on Saturday. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I'm scheduled to work all week, of course. And he's like, it's in Austin, Texas. And we're in LA. I'm like, that's like 24-hour drive.
Yeah.
And, but it was like, it's for this whatever, and there was a contest and we won it, and we're opening, and it wasn't even like a South by Southwest thing. It was like a post party for the film fest that takes place, I think, right around the same time. And none of us were even 21, so none of us could even rent a car. So the dude's girlfriend, who was like 24, which was the magical number, she rented us a van, got the ships covered, and like sure enough, whatever, we just packed up and went out to Austin, Texas, played one scheduled show, and then literally walked around the sort of Congress 4th Street area, that kind of downtown area, and like we found 2 more shows to play the next day.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I have to go back to the I just moved to LA thing, because it just freaking blows my mind that you like, you know what, you just made this decision to go, I'm going to go move to LA, because that is such, like, everyone has thought that.
Yeah.
Everyone has thought that, or just move somewhere. But did you have like a contact out there, or someone to stay with, or something like that? Because just to go like, hey, I'm going to move to LA, and just packing up your car and driving across the country is...
At that time, like, before she had moved, I was kind of seeing somebody, and then she moved out there first, and I didn't really have any plans to be like, let's go, I'm going to move here and we'll be together forever and blah, blah, blah. And like, I just kind of was like, I'll go, I'll check it out, I'll try it, we'll try this thing, and then at least I have a place to land, which is actually, you know, is a good point, because I think if I didn't have that person, I didn't have a place, you know, it would have been, I don't know if I would have done it, man.
Yeah.
Like, it made it easier to be like, okay, I'm going to LA and I'm going to this address, and I know as soon as I get there, I have a place to stay. Shipped my drums from Drums Etc. as well.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I think both. I shipped I have a 7-piece kit, the same kit I play now, and I shipped a 4-piece just to have something. But yeah, having a place to land was massive. I mean, you know, it was literally, I had never even left living at my parents' house. I was like 22, 23-ish. And this was like, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm moving out.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I'm moving to the other side of the country. So I did that. And yeah, it was wild. I mean, it's kind of funny because I moved back to Lancaster. I was gone maybe a total of like 15 years. But I don't know if you can vouch for this or what your experiences were, but like 20 years ago, like Lancaster didn't have as much going on as it does now.
Yeah, I can vouch for that.
You know, there was one club, the Chameleon, and if you played upstairs or downstairs, that seemed to be kind of it, unless it, you know, was a...
I think there was kind of like a boom period in the 90s. Like the 90s, I think were pretty happening as far as like there was a really good local scene.
Yeah, totally.
And everything else. And then after the Chameleon Club, I think switched owners, and after the 2000s, it kind of went downhill. Like mid-2000s.
Just less places to play,
I
but
think
still the
so.
same amount of bands.
Yeah, and I also just kind of...
And there was like, I think like a certain musical vibe. You know, you were talking about the grunge movement of the early '90s and things like that, and we were still kind of on the tail of that. So there was some focus, and then all of a sudden there was no direction as far as what the music sounded like. Or
No, you're totally right. The
You know what I
early
mean?
mid '90s like Lancaster scene had a lot of really cool bands that
Yeah.
I literally was talking to a friend about it the other night, and we were just like nerding out on all these bands. We're like, oh my god, that person and that person,
Right.
and but yeah, like I was 21. I probably had like I mean, I definitely had a way bigger head than I do now, and like I just kind of felt like I had outgrown Lancaster a little bit. And that's kind of was one of the factors of moving out. Was playing with Ant and Tim and Dark Black, and he was an awesome guitar player, and he still is. And like at that point, I was like, I'm not gonna find anybody else to play like this, and
Yeah.
I just had to go and that's the definition of insanity. You're just gonna do the same thing. You're
Right.
gonna expect different
All
results.
it takes is a woman on the West Coast.
It's always a woman.
A place to
I
land.
knew it was a woman. I was just trying to get you there. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you had to have a place
How'd-
to go.
Yeah.
Because
What,
then
what
then
pushed you over everyone
go-
gets close, but what pushed you over the edge?
you can get there.
Yeah.
Like, here's my home base. Now you can go apply for a job for some money.
Got a
Yeah.
place
Start
to ship
playing
your
on the
drums.
weekends. You got a place to
All
ship
of
your
that
drums.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So it was. I
Any
mean, it
drum
was
shops out there.
Pro Drums right
Yeah, that's
there,
it.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
It was awesome. That another place you'd go into and just be like, wait a minute, the dude from the Tonight Show, Marvin Smitty Smith, was just like right there,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
nerding out, just like anybody that comes into the store. And it's like, it's cool to see those like heavy hitter guys that are just like they're still nerds,
Oh yeah.
and they still do. Their Instagram is just full of heavy hitters just playing stuff, but.
Yeah. They're there.
Yeah.
They had Buddy Rich's either last or one of his kits just right there. It's like, there it is.
Wow.
That's Buddy Rich's kit. And so I would go there. I reached out to them when I was taking drum lessons, and they hit me up with like 20 people, and really cool shop. And then there was another shop. Obviously, there was Guitar Center, and I think there was a Sam Ash. When I first moved there was still like a lot more of those boutique guitar shops, which is cool. But there was a drum shop in North Hollywood or Burbank that was owned either by the drummer of that band 311 or his
Chad Sexton.
Yeah. Oh, right, because it was called Chad Sexton's Drum City or something like that.
There it is, folks. I
And,
don't know. We'll have to confirm that later. It might be
Yeah.
a different chat section.
But his brother and like his mom ran the shop, and that guy was always super nice as well. And I'd go in and be like, dude, I'm sorry, but I have to ask an opinion about this or that. I keep busting this. And he, it was the same thing. Quick question. A 5-minute visit turned into an hour every time. And that guy,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm just talking shop. And he's like, I love it.
Yeah,
So
we love it.
that guy was cool. But yeah, the drum shops out there, that was kind of all I maybe checked out a lot. So yeah. And then, yeah, I would just hit up Craigslist, be in bands and bands and bands.
How many bands were you playing in?
Oh,
at any
man.
given time.
I think before I landed in Huntress, I was in a Ramones tribute band, a Sex Pistols tribute band, a band that played at the Cat Club once a month on the third Thursday or something like that. I was in this band called Van Stone for a second, which is like a silly comedy band. I think that might have been at the same time. So when I joined Huntress, I was like, oh, this is it. And then I kind of quit all those other bands. But I was in 2 tribute bands and then a couple other bands that I was like, I can't.
When you were doing the Ramones tribute band, did you guys dress like the Ramones?
Oh, yeah. I
Nice.
got a wig. I bought a wig and I went to some hairdresser in like Toluca Lake or something like that. And I had her just, here's a picture of Marky, go.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And that band was awesome. I loved it. Me and this singer guy were like mega Ramones nerds. And we're like, if we're going to do this band, it's going to be like this. We're going to do it like the Ramones did it. And we did the best of our ability with what we could get and do to make it. So we're like stringing songs together, playing a little bit more up tempo. But that was hard, just doing straight, fast eighth
I
notes
can't
for like an
imagine.
hour and
Yeah.
15 minutes.
I can't imagine.
Ramones is one of those bands that kind of changed it for me. When I was working at ABG, and I was big time into the metal stuff, like Metallica and Megadeth, still into the thrash stuff. you know,
What's ABG? Is that
American Bar and Grill.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what it was. I was
worked
going to
in
say
Energy, A bag,
A bag.
Bar and
Yeah,
Okay,
I worked
okay,
at
I got
American
it.
Bar and Grill when I was in high school,
Nice.
and I remember finding this box of tapes, and the Ramones were there, and I knew of them. And I put that in, and I was like hooked.
That's it.
From there on out, I was like hooked on the Ramones for like the longest time. I still am, and that's what changed it for me as far as like then I wanted to play that style of music, and
Nice.
I got more into that.
All these years later, that particular tribute band is still playing shows in
Nice.
LA and around and all that stuff. They're awesome.
So you did that,
Mm-hmm.
and the Sex Pistols tribute band.
Yeah.
So you have one record to pull from.
Yeah. I think I ended up quitting that one. So maybe by the time I joined Hunters, that was like only 2 or 3 simultaneous bands.
Yeah. But then that kind of like established you're like, okay, this is gonna be consistent enough. It'll make me some money. It's working. I enjoy it.
Yeah, the cool thing about the tribute band is you can just be like, well, none of us are going to leave the house unless this is the guarantee. And that's kind of what we did. And that was cool. I mean, it's definitely awesome when you're like, oh man, I just made $75. I can pay my cell phone bill. Like that's
Yeah.
like one thing. And you're like, this is it. I'm a professional musician. I got a drink ticket and a half, you know? And so yeah, doing the tribute band thing. Sorry, I don't know what else?
We're just talking about like how many bands you were playing in, and like gearing up for like because you've done like tours.
Yeah, we did some
I've never
pretty
done a
big
tour.
tours.
I
Like,
just want to hear about that.
right. So the funny thing is, and this is where you never know when a door closes of what's going to open. Because, like, I was playing in this band. I think they called themselves Gypsy Hawk, and they actually put a couple albums out. And I like started this band with this guy kind of in the initial phases. And in one of the practice afterwards, he just called me and we're just like, no, you're not the guy. And I was just like, what the heck, man? Mm-hmm. And then, I like literally at 2 a.m. drove to the rehearsal studio, picked up my gear, and then just like left. And I was like, fine, if I'm out, I'm going right now. So, and I was, like really pissed off at that guy for a minute. And then fast forward a couple months or something, and he said, or maybe he called me, and I was just like, hey, what? I was being super tough guy. And
What do you want?
yeah, what? And so he was like, hey, do you know? And he was like kind of living at this house, which some of the Huntress guys were living at.
Hey, do you know any good drummers? Like,
Hey, do you got any drummer recommendations? So he calls me. He's like, hey, their drummer quit, and I think he's gonna call you. And that's sure enough exactly what happened. The dude who kicked me out of his band gave my info to the dude in Huntress, essentially, Blake, who I think initially he called me. And I also did another tour. Sorry, before I was in Huntress, I kind of joined this punk band that did this crazy U.S. tour, and then they ditched me in Albuquerque.
oh my god,
They ditched you in Albuquerque?
Yeah, I don't know the whole story, like, absolutely.
Yeah, clearly.
Like, as far as, like, it was a 3-piece punk band, and it was an awesome tour. We were opening for Fear, Agent Orange, and D.I.
Wow.
And Total Chaos was on that bill. They're like another Southern California punk band. And but we did this tour. We weren't getting along. That's a crazy story of why I got ditched. And it
was just 3 of you guys, right?
It was 3 of us, and we had a merch kid. And
now, were you guys traveling in a van?
van, hot, summer.
But you were on tour with other guys, but they weren't all in the band.
We all had, so this particular band, we had our own van.
Okay.
So we did the van tour. And long story short, we weren't getting along. I was probably being a brat at some point. And then and we played this New Mexico show. The next show was going to be in LA. And, I just was kind of like, all right, guys, we're not getting along, but I'll drive us. I'll get us to LA. Then it's it. Then it's done. I'll help you guys find a drummer in LA and this and that. I was trying to be like diplomatic.
Yeah.
They weren't having it. So I had a friend from New Mexico at that show. I went in. We were playing a skate park, which was kind of cool. We played like on top of the ramps, which was super sick. And I went back. I was walking my friend to his car to say goodbye, and then I come back to the van, and all of my gear is just out in the parking lot.
Wow.
in the back of the van, and I was just like, "What's going on?" And that was kind of it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Brutal.
yeah.
Dude.
Hey, at least they didn't steal your gear.
I'm happy they didn't steal my gear. Yeah. Hey, thanks guys for not stealing my gear.
Just,
It would have been
yeah.
better had
Yeah,
you hauled it around and
It dropped off in L.A. for me. Come on. I mean,
now you're not only you stuck here in New Mexico. Was it New Mexico you said?
It was Albuquerque.
Albuquerque,
Yeah.
New Mexico.
yeah.
But now you're stuck there with your drums.
Man.
It's also good to keep in touch with your old neighbors because my old neighbor, she moved to Albuquerque. So
like, "I'm
I was
moving
like,
in."
"Hey, I'm here. Like, let's
Here I
hang out."
am with my drums.
And so I went. I called her up, and she and her like boyfriend at that time. It's a crazy story, but he ended up driving me back to L.A. that night.
Wow.
It was awesome.
Cool.
Dude.
So that tour finishes.
Yeah, that tour finished.
Have
and then,
you never seen those guys?
Then I
again?
got a call.
Is
You
that
know,
right?
like
You've never seen them? The rest of those guys in that band, have you ever seen them since then?
never.
Come on out, guys.
Do
No,
you
I'm just
still
kidding.
owe them a knuckle sandwich or no?
I think at that time I would have. Now, for me, it's water under the bridge.
Yeah. In hindsight, you're probably like, if you admitted like maybe I was being a little bit of a brat or
It was
whatever
like the
was.
first tour, so you kind of just like
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
that was like my first big tour, so you're just kind of you don't know what to expect, you don't know what to do, and don't know really how to act, and it was still pretty DIY. So I think whatever. So, but yeah, the Huntress guy called me, and that's kind of when I just started jamming with them, and they were doing a kind of like mini lineup change before their first album, and then we just started kind of playing around LA. We did a West Coast tour for the first tour, and just a van and a trailer. That was awesome. I mean,
What
all
type
the
of
tours.
music was it?
Huntress is like, I would say more like traditional style heavy metal.
Okay.
So like heavy metal, more influenced by like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and like King Diamond. It was like almost like at times King Diamond, but with a female singer.
Like the new wave British heavy metal.
Yeah. The new wave.
Yeah.
New.
Yeah. So
I guess that's what it was dubbed back then. Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. Like it's.
Oh yeah.
It was called the new
Obvious,
wave of
yeah,
British
yeah.
heavy
That's
metal.
totally new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were kind of like super inspired by that, and also just like the sort of DIY like underground scene, and just LA had like a pretty cool like underground metal scene, and just like if you could kind of find your niche, like it was awesome because people came and it was really
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
And we play all the venues like that band. Yeah, Huntress played almost every place in LA that I can think of. Palladium,
Whiskey. You had to have played there.
Yeah, I played there several times.
Yeah.
Super cool, kind of.
What's the Rainbow
Roxy.
Roxy? Yep.
Yeah.
What else do they have out there?
Oh, at that time there was the Key Club, Palladium,
Palladium.
the Fonda. Let me see. There was. Yeah, I mean, we would play like bars too. Like 3 of Clubs on Vine in Santa Monica is a place that I think Huntress played their first show with me. I think I have a video of it somewhere, which is crazy. And then we would just, a lot of the major clubs we would play those when we did tours and stuff.
Yeah. So let's pause the story here.
Okay.
And because you were from here.
Yeah.
You ended up in LA playing all these clubs.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people here that want to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, times change and things are different and stuff. But if you had to give advice to anyone who's looking to do that and looking to at some point get hooked up with a band and like go out there and do it and do the tour and stuff, do you have any advice? Any things you learned the hard way that you don't want someone else to learn the hard way?
Other than having a girlfriend that was moving to LA.
Definitely find somebody who's moving to LA first.
That's it.
Yeah.
Don't be the first one.
And then have
get,
a
get that set up.
get a 1995 Acura Integra.
It's the only way you can
drive.
drive.
Oh yeah, drove across country. That was awesome. The advice I'd give is just go, just do it. It's like anything, whether it's this podcast or teaching lessons or making drum videos or whatever. Like for you to actually go and do it, like you're now in this tiny 1% of people that are actually doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of people that are just out there saying, oh, I want to do that, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And they don't ever do it. And so if you actually just start trying, like, you know, the first one is always going to be crappy. The first band you're in is going to suck. And, you know, just like when you're 15 years old, the first band we're in, you know, we're not all like child prodigies. You know what I mean? It's like you got to just hash it out and just go out to the woodshed.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when it comes, if anybody wanted to do it, just go. Figure it out. You know, live in your car, get a Planet Fitness membership. You know,
That's the hack, right? Did you have one?
I did not, because I
Okay.
didn't need to live in my car. But
Okay.
you know what I mean. So like, just it's expensive. I think the same LA from even like 15, almost 20 years ago it's a lot different now in a lot of ways. But I think like if you can do some research, find somebody, go out and visit for a week, see if you even like it. But yeah, I definitely visited before I moved. So, you know, go out. Just give it a shot. Try. Just try.
Yeah, that's the difference. That's the difference between stuff that people say and stuff that people do. Mm-hmm. Execution.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you guys want to know about like the tours and stuff, so Huntress, like we recorded a 2-song EP that was, well, it's funny, we talk about fake it till you make it. We build it as the singles for our album, but really we just went in and recorded 2 songs.
Yeah.
And
That's it.
and then
It's all perception.
and then
That's
we
it.
made this music video, and then that was sort of like the premiere single of our upcoming album, which wasn't even being recorded yet. And then that single got us our record deal from this label in Austria called Napalm Records. And then so we signed to Napalm Records.
Is that after Napalm Death?
No, it's not. It should be. I don't really know where they got the name. I should have learned that. But I wish, because Napalm Death is sick.
I know.
But so yeah, we like signed to this label, and then it was just like on after that. We had management, we had booking agents, and then we just started touring. Like, and it was just like relentless. The first U.S. tour, there's a crazy story. The first U.S. tour, we toured for a week, because tours always like to start on the East Coast, especially when you live in L.A. So we toured for a week to like Baltimore, and then we did 3 weeks back to L.A., and then our next tour, we finished, we played the Key Club in L.A. on a Wednesday night, and then, so they just announced that they're coming back. The New England Metal and Hardcore Fest is returning. I don't know if you guys know,
Oh,
but
no. Yeah, that's awesome.
we were billed to play that Saturday morning at noon, and we were in LA, so we had 48 hours to drive across the country. So we finished a
way.
tour, and then the same night, like, I went home, took a shower, didn't even unload the van or anything. We just hopped back in the van at midnight in Pasadena, drove straight, like only stopping for gas. We like timed it. It was really gnarly. Everybody who drove a full tank of gas. We stopped to get gas, switched drivers, was just so exhausted. It was a 50 or 56 hour drive straight, and we didn't even think we were going to make it. Woke up in a Walmart parking lot at like 4 a.m. the night before we were supposed to play, and we're like, whoa, we made it. So got up, never been more tired in my life. Talk about fast changeovers. I think the New England Metal Fest was at 5 to 10 minute changeovers.
Wow.
Including your breakable swap. It was so that was one of the worst shows I ever played, just because nothing was comfortable. And so, but yeah, that was crazy. And then we did another 3 or 4 weeks tour with that power metal band Dragon Force.
Wow.
Yeah. And we did that, and then that finished, I think, in LA again. So we did like the first tour we did was 7 or 8 weeks straight.
So you had management and agents and all that stuff. They were kind of like hooking all that up. And were you guys doing a headlining tour, or were you guys a supporting act on that tour?
We were mostly like always supporting, unless it was like our own thing. So if like a tour, if the Dragon Force tour started at the Gramercy in New York, then we would do like 5 dates on our way out and just kind of like warm up and do, that would be like our headlining shows. So just doing that.
Man, that you basically jumped into that too. Like you did like some small, like it was basically
It was
like
crazy.
All right, you want to do this? Here you go. Here's
Yeah.
some life experience
Yeah.
right
So
now,
you did
and
the tour
a lot
first.
of it.
where it's like a do-it-yourself type of tour.
Yeah.
What's like the biggest difference between like the do-it-yourself, you guys booked every show, crammed in a van, trying to make it happen, and versus like, okay, now you have a little bit of a back by some agents and management and a record company. I'm sure it's not a whole like
It's
oh,
not
here's
like-
all the money in the world. Like, I'm
No.
sure it's not that.
Yeah, we were actually insanely lucky enough to have like tour support from our label at that time, which was still at that time even unheard of because labels, you know, they're trying to make money back. They're not trying to give you money. But like, I would say the biggest difference because, you know, we were in a van the whole time. We did a couple of bus tours later on, but like the biggest difference I would just say is as silly as it sounds is just your load in time. When you're doing your own sort of DIY headlining tour, you're probably not loading in at the earliest would be 6 or 7 o'clock. Whereas like when you're loading in for Danzig or Lamb of God, I think I did one of those Mayhem Fests, like those, like some of those major tours when you see, you know, what would be like the Fillmore in Philly or something like where King Diamond played that, like that load in's probably 10 a.m. for those guys. And so we would just try to, that we didn't get many hotels because usually it was an 6 or 8 hour drive. So you finish playing a show, you load out, maybe it's 12 or 12:30, and then you're like, okay, well, we have 8 hours to drive to get to the next show. So we should try and drive a little bit tonight. So you're definitely not partying.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you're front loading it.
You're kind of partying, but you're not like doing it like people think that you are. You're working really hard.
In the back of a tour bus, like
yeah.
girls everywhere.
Yeah, no girls like heavy metal at that time. So we, but you know, you would drive a couple hours and just pull off into a truck stop or Walmart parking lot. We would always just sleep in the van. I think we opened for Lamb of God twice and like on 2 different tours, and we, you know, it was all those tours were it was just, there were always like 8 hour drives. So we would just always sleep in the van for a few hours. Somebody would wake up at 6 a.m. and then we would drive another 6 hours, load in at 12, and then you finally get about your day, you know?
Wow. Did you try to get up like some rest at that point? Like find a spot in the venue or back on the bus or the van just to crash a little bit then because you're so exhausted?
Yeah, I mean, you figure out how to. There's a Journey documentary from like 1983 called Frontiers and Beyond, and there's a clip of a guy sleeping on a roll of duct tape as a pillow, and sometimes that's what it felt
right,
like.
Yeah.
Now, actually, because you had mentioned the Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
Any crazy Walmart parking lot stories? Like,
No, not really like
Okay.
crazy. We sometimes, so if there was another band like in a van or something, there was a couple times where we brought a barbecue with us and we would just buy some meats, buy some veg, and just sit in the parking lot and just kind of barbecue, eat dinner, and we kind of like. None of us were really into like fast food unless it was like the worst last resort on the planet. So we always kind of figured out ways around it. Another way is like if you plan on getting to the venue like at actual load-in time, I'd kind of look and be like, hey, there's a grocery store a mile away from this venue. Before we go, let's go there and actually buy groceries that we'll eat. And I know they don't have it here, but like Trader Joe's, you know, was a thing, and they have all prepackaged stuff. It was so easy, and you're spending way less money than if you would.
fast food or getting like a McDonald's number 8 meal or
Yeah.
and it's just gonna weigh you down and make
Yeah,
you
Walmart's were
uncomfortable
great
anyway.
for like brushing your teeth at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
That's about it.
and the parking lot.
And their parking lot, amazing, nice and bright with those lights to
Yeah.
sleep under.
I've just sitting there thinking I can imagine some people coming up to you or whatever because you can find some characters at the Walmart and at 3 o'clock in the morning. But
Yeah, surprisingly, I can't remember ever getting like messed with in the parking lot, and that's probably why we actually like early on, Jill, the singer, she was just like super babe. Like I think she was in Playboy or something at once, and she was like had a really like popular DJ night in LA. So like sleeping at people's houses and like, as nice as people are to like offer their place to stay, I think by the second or third night of tour, we were just like, okay, that's done. Because really, a lot of times, as you know, we didn't mind having a couple beers after a show and hanging out, but people want to they think that like this is their like Motley Crue moment where you're just like, all right, let's go all night. It's like, no, dude, we're like pumped to be sleeping in a building.
Right.
We want to sleep on your couch.
And now you're dealing with their schedules too. You don't know who else is coming or going.
Yeah, and then they turn
like,
on YouTube at like 1 a.m. and they're like, oh, you got to watch this. And it's like, no, I just want to go to bed. Right. The one night I remember we were at somebody's house planning on staying there. And we did this a couple times. There was a time in Santa Cruz too where we bailed on this guy's house. It was just too gnarly. And but we were at this guy's house, and they were really, really nice. But you could tell that they were kind of showing off, and nobody wanted to like look stupid in front of the band, which is super dumb because we're all just nerds too.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, it turned into like 3 a.m. and I think somebody came in and just was like, hey. You know, this was a total lie because we ended up just driving around the corner. But we're like, hey, we should actually just get on the road and drive. We got a long drive ahead of us. Because we were all just sitting on the couch. We all just wanted to sleep. And then we just hopped back in the van. I think drove 2 blocks away and parked there and slept overnight.
Got to do what you got to do. I hear you, man.
Absolutely.
When I'm tired, I'm ready for bed. And
yeah.
I do not want to hear anything. Like, I don't want to hear any music. I don't want to hear the TV. It's like I'm ready for bed, and any little thing is just like, okay, I have to go remove myself, and I have to be somewhere where I can sleep.
Yeah, there were nights when we had places to stay, and I remember one night, I think we were in Toronto or Chicago or something, and Ian and I walked into this person's apartment. We're like, this is just cramped. Where were you going to go? There's cat hair everywhere. Like, him and I went back down to the van. It was cold, too, and we just kind of went back in the van and had a great night's sleep in the van. You really learned to sleep well in that van.
Yeah. You learn where all the comfort spots are.
Europe was different because those vans they don't have bench seats like they do here. Shit. So, well, it's just like their normal like Sprinter van. Those are just like bucket seats.
So what was the difference touring here versus touring in Europe?
Oh, life of luxury versus, you know, being treated like a schmuck who's trying to steal your money or something like that. Like, Europe, I feel like still has like an infrastructure, or they care about arts in a different way than the U.S. as far as like, and like Lidditz here, Rock Lidditz or Mickey's Black Box is probably a good example of what it's like in Europe, where like you go to a venue in Europe, if you're there at 10 a.m., there's a full breakfast spread. There's staff that work at that venue. A lot of venues have their own in-house chefs and cooks. And so you go there and there's a full spread of food, cold cuts, bread, sandwiches, meats, cheeses, the whole thing. And that's just breakfast. And then, you know, and then dinner sometimes. I remember once we played in Portugal, dinner, they were like, no, you guys are coming to our restaurant down the street. And they had this restaurant closed for us in Lisbon for the whole band touring package. And we walked 2 blocks from this venue, and this family-owned restaurant just cooked for the whole entire crew, and that was awesome. There was a place in France where the catering was a double-decker bus. So, like, downstairs in the bus was the kitchen, and then upstairs was just all the seating. So you just, like, sat up there, and they were like, do you want a bottle of wine? It's like, yeah, of course. And, like, you know, you know, here's 4 different options for dinner. You're like, what? Like, I can barely get a hummus plate, you know, if I'm playing in New York somewhere. Like, so like that kind of like hospitality, I think their sound is like is way better. Like, they're just kind of, you can see that it's like still a big thing. Like, they really like care.
Going from like country to country? You said you were in France and another country, like going between the different lines. Like, how does that work?
It was just awesome. I mean, you get stamps usually at every thing, if you know, every border, but like when we were on the second tour we did was a 7-week tour of Europe with Dragon Force. So we toured with Dragon Force twice, and they were like, hey, come to Europe with us. And it was this 7-week tour, which was awesome because we went literally everywhere: Scandinavia, mainland Europe, and then I think in that tour was the first time we went to the UK. But like, I mean, you're just treated like such a baby. It's like, hey, you're on this bus. Somebody's going to drive you. and we only have a 2-hour drive because every city or country is so close together.
Yeah.
So you have to be on the bus by 4 a.m. And you're like, or 6 a.m. in some
Yeah.
of the cases, you're like, and then I just sit there and you drive me to the next place. Like,
Yeah.
it was,
That beats 50 hours cross country. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was
When
just
you're
like a
driving,
whole
taking turns.
whole different like world of just driving in I mean, there was a different like charm of driving yourself in the van and just like kind of being your own like renegade band and just doing everything you want to do when you want it, because the buses, they really don't stop at, you know, the 7-Eleven to snack up, you know.
Yeah.
So
you can make your choices. Going back to the first tour you were on, the do-it-yourself tour, you guys had the van. Was it a van you rented, or did you guys own it?
it was Blake had like just your classic was it conversion van where like the bed folded down in the back and there was
Yeah.
like 4 captain's chairs.
Cool.
And we towed a small trailer, and then the other band, we let them borrow the trailer for the rest of their tour. So the last part of that drive, we were all just in the captain's chairs because the van was just full of gear. And all the other tours were in like in the U.S. tours anyway, we were in a 15-passenger van. So the way it was set up for us, we all just had our own bench essentially, which was great.
And you just hauled the equipment in a trailer.
Had a trailer. It was a big move when we upgraded our trailer. We went from those tiny trailers to one of the ones with the side door.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
That was a huge leap.
You get your drums out very easily there.
Oh my
You don't
god,
have to, like-
it was awesome. Just had like our own mini dressing room in there.
Did you already? I mean, we shipped your drums out to California for
Yeah.
you. Did you have cases at that point, or did you? Have
Yeah,
to go to the
I
cases?
still have them, and it's great company. SKB cases, not like endorsed, but like
No,
they're-
you endorsed them. We talked about that in the podcast. Like, you know, drummers and artists and everything else have it backwards. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I'll endorse your stuff if you give it to me for free. No, you endorse SKB.
Yeah, they were awesome.
absolutely do.
So I had those cases, and I shipped everything in those cases in the boxes.
Yeah.
And at one point, the foam lining busted out on those cases. And I mean, I was still living in LA. I think it was right before I was going to move back to New Mexico. And I went down to the city of Orange and where SKB is. And I was like, hey, can you guys like reline this foam? They said you would do it. They just gave me a whole new set of cases.
Wow.
Like, I went in with my old cases with my name
Awesome.
spray paint, and they were just like super messed up. And I just left with brand new cases.
Yeah, we used to have some rental hardware, and then Rick is a big proponent of the SKB cases, especially the SKB hardware cases, because they're long. You don't have to break down your hardware. Well, sometimes those clips will break, and they would always replace them
Yep.
for us for free.
Yep.
Rick and I were just talking about that. Or rental.
They replaced my rollerblade wheels on my hardware case. They just
Wow.
they're like, oh, those are broken. We'll send you a new one.
And then they upgraded their latches so they wouldn't break, or it was more difficult to break. And
Yeah.
they were retrofitted to fit those old brackets too, and they sent it to us for free. And yeah, so same
Yeah.
thing. So big shout out to them.
Absolutely.
They stand by their equipment.
So you do all this touring.
Yeah.
This is where we turn into an infomercial for Lancaster.
Here it comes.
And you just couldn't resist good old Lancaster County, good old Lancaster City, and you moved back here. So what did the transition look like as far as you're doing this touring life? Then you just moved back to LA for a while?
Yeah, essentially, we were like on the road pretty heavily for like 2 to 2.5 years. At that, I think the first year alone, we were on the road for like 220 days. The second year was like 180 or something like that. And the thing that everybody just wants to go see their favorite bands and not, and not care about what's happening behind the scenes, but like maintaining relationships, maintaining all that kind of stuff is like really difficult when you're
Absolutely.
like, hey, I'm going to leave for 4 months and you maintain, and I barely have 2 nickels to rub together. So I'll give you what I can for rent. And it's like, it just starts to really take its strain on you. And I think for me, there was a little bit of like, you're feeling like you're, the I don't know. The only way I can think of it is to say like you're the hot shit in town. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm the new guy. Like, this is cool.
Yeah.
We're getting all this attention. I was just in the UK and I got my picture with Brian May from Queen, and I'm like living
Yeah.
on the highest life possible.
That's it.
And like, so I think there was a little bit of like ego just because I never had that before. And so I basically like one relationship ended, one next one started, and she lived in New Mexico. And at the end of, we had done another crazy touring thing we did, the Rockstar Mayhem tour, whatever that was called, like several years back. And they don't do it anymore, but it was like the new Ozfest at that time. It was like the summer metal tour, and we did that tour. Like Rob Zombie and Mastodon were playing, and like so it was just this monster tour, which was 5 weeks, and then we did another week that took us to Canada, and then we did 3 weeks right after that, and when we opened up for Danzig, and so like we were once again on the road for 9 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was also just to keep adding to it. Like at the beginning of that summer, we went to Europe for 2 or 2.5 weeks. We were home for like 5 or 7 days, and then we were gone for 8 weeks.
Quick
So
turnaround.
yeah, it just takes strains on relationships. So at the end of all that, I didn't have my LA place anymore. My new girlfriend at that time was living in New Mexico, and I moved to New Mexico
Because of a woman?
because of a young lady. Yes,
Well.
my fiance now is going to love listening to this when I'm just talking about my ex-girlfriend.
She won't
boy.
make it this far. She won't make it this
Yeah.
far. Come on. We talk about drums
Hold
at
on.
the front.
Because you had mentioned being on tour with Danzig.
Yeah.
You weren't on tour when he got snuffed, were you?
No. He was awesome on that tour.
No, when that guy knocked him out, the
Yeah,
bouncer dude.
I'm well aware of that, but no, that was not.
Oh no,
that
I
tour.
love Danzig and I love the Misfits.
yeah.
So I'm like, I'm a huge fan.
No, that
But-
tour was awesome. I mean, not to say like we were real picky about music, but we were all very excited to do that tour because we were
Yeah.
all major Danzig fans and Misfits fans, obviously.
Yeah.
Cool. So you end up moving to New Mexico,
Ended up in New Mexico.
and you start playing bands there.
Yeah, I still did a couple more tours with Huntress, and then
Okay.
I think just in hindsight, and we all kind of had said it in some capacity, the band kind of fizzled out for me. We're just like super burned out. So like after doing all that touring, and our singer Jill, she was like suffering from mental illness and stuff like that. So there was just some hard personalities to deal with, and it just kind of for me, I was like, man, the thought of just like getting back in the van again right now for 9 weeks, like it like freaked me out, and that's kind of when I think I like mentally checked out, and then they called me and were like, hey, no. So that was kind of the end of it. But so I was in New Mexico for like 2.5 years. I don't know if I played any gigs. I might have, but then I moved back to LA for like 1.5 or 2 years. And then that relationship ended. And then I moved to Pennsylvania for 5 months. I moved back to Lancaster for 5 months with the plan of going back to New Mexico. This is a real boring story.
No,
but,
I'm digging it, dude.
yeah, I was
No,
going.
we're here for the journey,
Yeah,
man. We
I
started
know.
at the beginning. We are here for the
Yeah.
journey.
So yeah,
I didn't know you bounced around that much. So it's like, dude, I've never really done anything like that. So
the place I live now in Lancaster is the place it's the longest place I've lived in the last like 15 years, I think, or maybe 10 years. But yeah, so I briefly moved back here. I kind of was just like, I'm done with LA in the September of 2017, I think it was. And I initially was kind of like trying to figure out how to make it work and asking around, where can I go? Where can I stay? Where can I move? And then I was just kind of like, the light bulb went off, and
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, like I want to move back to New Mexico. I really liked it there. So I was like, I'm just going to go move to the East Coast. I'll throw my stuff in storage in New Mexico. And I haven't had a holiday with my family in 10 years at that time. So, on a capacity of actually just being there versus like I'm coming in,
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
8th of January when everybody's tired of Christmas that's my family
Yeah.
time. So like I just kind of came back for 5 or 6 months. And then in February of 2018, moved back to New Mexico. And then, once again there, I kind of just called initially, like always really important, find a place to play drums. So
Yes.
I like moved to New Mexico and I called these guys that had a band room, and I was like, I just want a corner. can I just rent a corner from you guys? And they were like, yes. And then, of course, that led to like me playing in their band for 2 years, and that was a band called Russian Girlfriends, and we released an EP like in January of 2022, which is I think it's really cool. But yeah, we did that EP, and then, but yeah, I was in New Mexico for like 2 to 2.5 years again.
Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, yes. Yeah, I lived in Albuquerque and I worked in Santa Fe, just kind of doing restaurant gig work. And
Did you get to do the Breaking Bad tour?
oh, dude, the last place I lived was 2 blocks away from Jesse Pinkman's parents' house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just
Wow.
would walk our dogs past there every day.
Well, yeah, and like I've seen YouTube videos where they do like, the tour of like where they filmed, and a lot of the locations are pretty close together.
Yeah,
It's like that car wash is right around the corner from there as well.
it's all right there. It's crazy that city has that much attention just from that one show, but it's
Yeah.
all there. It's really cool.
Nice.
So yeah, I lived in New Mex and then played. The Russian Girlfriends was kind of like a rock / kind of punk band, and then we did our own little tours. We went to Texas, on like a 5-day or a week tour. We used to go up to Wyoming a couple times. That was always really cool to just kind of go north, and then
Big wide open spaces.
oh my god, it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did that, and then it was just kind of I hadn't had the feeling in a long time, but I was just kind of like would come back to visit. You kind of see Lancaster grow and grow and grow,
Yeah,
and little piece
absolutely.
by piece.
Evolve.
Like, wait a minute, that's actually like a cool restaurant now. That was literally a shell of a building like the last time I was here. So you would just see all this new stuff being built and like a sort of city coming together. And of course, right before I moved back, the Chameleon closed down forever. But so like I started getting this feeling again of like, man, should I move back to the East Coast? I kind of miss being near my family. And then in 2020, the beginning of that year, that's actually when I asked my now fiance. I was like, hey, do you ever think about moving back to the East Coast?
Where's she from originally?
She's from Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah. She's originally from Detroit, and then she moved to New York when she was like 17 to go to fashion school at FIT. And then she was making shoes in New York, and then I met her in New Mexico. She was apprenticing there with this lady who was a 4th-generation cowboy boot maker. So she was learning how to make cowboy boots.
Wild.
At that time when I met her.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then so she kind of, when we first met, we were both like she was about to move to New York. I was about to move to Santa Fe. Mm-hmm. And then we were like, oh, wait, no, this is awesome. So we both squashed those ideas immediately. And then, so 2020, and we're just sitting there twiddling our thumbs, and I'm just, diving into drum recording and making videos.
yeah.
And then we were just like, let's go. Let's move back.
That's
we
great.
decided.
Well, dude, we're
we
glad
did
to
it.
have you back, man.
Has she
It's a
ever
journey.
been to Lancaster before?
No.
Or did she just go in cold turkey?
We came for my friend Bruce's wedding. So, Bruce Yule. We
yeah.
went to his wedding, and that was the first time she had ever been in Lancaster. And then we were only here for like 4 or 5 days, and we kind of settled on moving to Lancaster. She really wanted to move to Philly. And I just was like, if I move to Philly, I might as well still be living in LA as far as how often I'll see my family. So,
Right.
And that's when we moved back here.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you're here, you're playing, you're an artist, you're teaching too?
Yeah, I have a studio in downtown Lanc, right by ABAG, and it's the coolest studio I've ever had. In LA, like I had a studio, and I would pay $300 or $350 a month just to rent a corner to where I would have to break down and set up my drums every time.
Oh my
So
gosh.
now I have my own room, which is, at times twice as big as some of the rooms I had in LA. And I have my kit there. I do drum videos and make recordings, and I teach lessons.
The studio that you have, is it on Liberty Street?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the tie-in, because you said that you hear me drumming, and I'm like,
Yeah.
actually by my house all the time. How do you know where I live too? Number one,
I put 2 and 2 together.
You're like, wait a minute.
how do you know where I live? But you may have seen me out on the porch or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, okay. I've been in that studio, or one of the studios already, but I know a lot of people that have studios down there.
Yeah, the one death metal band from Lancaster.
Yeah,
They play
March to Victory.
They're next door. There's a guy with a gym down there.
Yeah.
And then
cool.
I feel bad that I always forget his name, but he's in like all of the like pub rock bands, and he's another great drummer.
Paul Murr has a studio there.
Oh, maybe it's Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to work at drums and teach there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta have Paul on the show.
Yep.
Gotta have him on
He
the
has a
show.
studio there.
But that's rad. So you're teaching, and then also we were talking about Zootropolis.
Yep. And
As
I work
well.
at Zootropolis. I manage there sometimes.
Zootropolis, back up. It's Zootropolis.
Zo.
I've been saying zoo.
No, don't say zoo.
All right.
So
I retract it. So let's do it again. So yeah, and you're working down at Zootropolis.
Yeah, absolutely. Edit that out. So
Yeah.
I work there, just serving, bartending. Kind of do that a couple days, and then I teach a couple days.
That's great.
And I make silly drum videos where I goof off with the editing and stuff, and just kind of.
No, dude, I was checking them out. It looks and sounds great.
Oh, thanks,
You have
man.
a great sound. Like your drums, they're saying, I'm like, oh man, maybe I need a Star Classic. That's why I brought that up. I was like, oh man, those drums sound good,
Yeah.
man. They sound
Yeah.
so good.
I know. I always argue of like, I should get a new one, and then I'm like, no, these sound really good.
Right,
So
yeah.
I still really like that drum set a lot.
Yeah,
And that's the one I toured everywhere with.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I don't need to fix that drum set, except for the things I need.
However,
to
if
fix.
you do want to fix it,
yeah,
you know
Come to
what
Drums,
to
drum
etc.
to drums.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, but that's awesome. Thanks. I think there's so many people who will find value in just hearing about your journey and like what you did, and like potentially get ideas about how they could do it. Especially because there's a lot of people from the East Coast that are like, yeah, there's the West Coast thing, and like
Yeah.
there's a lot happening out there, but you don't really know much of it. But you prepared, you planned, you knew someone out there, so you had an anchor, a spot to land.
Always start seeing somebody first.
And then you, yeah, exactly. And then you decided to actually, you didn't decide that you wanted to do it, you actually did it. There's that execution phase. That's awesome.
Yeah, just go do it. Just try it, because like, I mean, think if you have the idea that you want to do it or you want to try and do it, like, are we all going to be sitting in our deathbed and being like, I'm glad I didn't go. I'm glad I didn't try that thing.
Yep.
Like, just go do it. At least you tried. Like, if you try and it fails, that's totally fine. Just go.
Okay, before we kind of wrap it up here, when you were in a few days ago, you briefly mentioned the Metallica album Death Magnetic, and you had a story behind that, and we didn't get to that. And I'd like to hear the story behind that and the engineer, if you can share it. If there's
Oh
something
yeah,
you can
the
share.
engineer. It's not that exciting,
Okay.
but the engineer who was the guy who was in the band that ditched me in New Mexico, he worked at Sound City in L.A.
Okay, famous recording studio in L.A.
Yeah, and he
Absolutely.
was an engineer or just worked in the studio when they were recording that album.
Okay,
And he just said the Metallica dudes were super awesome, and they would,
Nice.
splurge and buy everybody crazy expensive lunches every day, and
That's how you win. That's how you win people over.
yeah.
That's right.
I was telling Shawn,
And beer.
if someone, we had a customer graciously hook us up, Mel, the other day and buy us a pizza, and I'm like,
Right.
dude, you're in. That's
Yeah.
it. You bought us a pizza,
Yeah.
and then our one rep sent us some free T-shirts. We're like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
it. We're very simple
Ah.
people.
yeah,
Yeah, a $7 pizza goes a long way.
heck
Absolutely.
yeah.
Take care of your people that you go to all the time. Not necessarily just drumming, but like in everything. Show some appreciation. It really does
Yeah.
go a long way.
If you're asking your friends to help you move, just have pizza and beer at that place.
For sure.
That's
And
it. That's
I'll help that guy move a lot.
Yep, that means a lot.
Cool. Well, unless you guys have anything else to add, I think we can close our.
I don't think
Dude,
so.
that was rad.
Dude,
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
there's so much more to that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
but
like
just hearing
tip of
about
the
you
iceberg.
doing it, going out there, moving, and life on the road, and the different styles of tours, and I just loved it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was fun while it lasted.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for checking out, tuning in to Drum Key. If you want to contribute to the show, we've got that Discord that I mentioned earlier. Pop in the comments. Reach out to us anywhere that you see Drum Key or drums, etc. You will get to Shawn and I. We're very easy to find. By all means, please support your local drum shops. If you don't have one, we'd be happy to adopt you into our family. But thanks for tuning in, and have a good one.